What's up guys, this is your favorite fanfic YouTuber, the Fanfic Majesty, and welcome to another amazing video. You can follow me on Patreon for exclusive stories. 6 hectoseconds. Chapter 126 The Speed of Thunder. Bang bang bang. A series of beating sounds continued to sound in the open space, accompanied by the blue and white thunder light that flashed from time to time. Xiaoli, who unloaded his load, and Sasuke, who was surrounded by arcs, intertwined continuously, and the two figures were getting faster and faster, almost to the top. Sakura's little Sakura also had to use super dynamic vision to observe the movements of the two people underneath. As for Tenten, who had neither pupil surgery nor superpowers, he couldn't see what was going on underneath. Can keep up with the speed of Sasuke's thunder body technique, that young man's strength is pretty good. Under the force field perception, the movements of the two below are clearly mapped in their minds. Iruka exclaimed, if it is purely on the physical skills, Xiaoli is even better than the normal state of Sasuke. After all, the thunder body technique belongs to the scope of ninjutsu and cannot be regarded as ninjutsu. Pure physical skills. However, the ninja will not use one aspect of the advantage to judge which is strong and weak. Sasuke in the enhanced physical activity state will greatly increase its speed and responsibility. Sasuke, who is not weak in physical skills, will greatly improve the physical function on this basis. It's not something that Xiaoli, who only knows physical skills, can compare. Therefore, anyone who can observe the battle knows that Xiaoli can barely keep up with Sasuke's speed, but he is at a disadvantage in other aspects, especially his reaction ability. Sasuke did not even use Sharingan, and all of Xiaoli's movements were affected. To see through it completely, Sasuke, who had made a prejudgment in advance, easily avoided Xiaoli's attack, and Sasuke's counterattack could always hit Xiaoli. Had it not been for Sasuke's deliberate release of water, Xiaoli would have fallen. However, Xiaoli didn't seem to notice Sasuke's retention of hands. Every time he was attacked, he gritted his teeth and continued to fight. Even though all his moves were invalid to Sasuke, Sasuke's most proud physical skills were completely suppressed by Sasuke. It seems that he wants to prove something through this duel. Guy's face was a little serious, and after hearing Iruka's words, he suddenly sighed. Thunder that is not under your control will paralyze your body. Uchiha Sasuke's technique will strengthen your own physical skills while also giving opponents a certain degree of thunder-like attacks. The longer the battle, the more affected the opponent's physical functions will be. Under the circumstances, even if it is temporarily tied with him, he will be defeated because of the additional effect of that technique. It is a terrible technique. It seemed to confirm Guy's inference, and it seemed that Sasuke was a little impatient with Xiaoli's ignorance. After evading Xiaoli's obvious trembling blow, Sasuke quickly walked around behind Xiaoli, no longer keeping his hands. Kicked hard to Xiaoli's side with a full kick. Although Xiaoli had already sensed Sasuke's movements, his gradually paralyzed body had no time to react. The next moment, he only felt a strong force erupting from his waist, he couldn't help screaming, and his body fell uncontrollably again. Fly out. However, this was not over yet. Just when Xiaoli was about to land, Sasuke suddenly appeared beside him, and then pressed his knees against Xiaoli's abdomen. Xiaoli's screams suddenly stopped, and foam was spit out from his mouth. The whole body flew upwards. It's almost time to recognize the gap in each other's strength. Sasuke raised his head, whispered in his mouth, and then raised one hand inexplicably. With his movements, the arc that originally surrounded him suddenly disappeared, and at the same time a huge chakra burst out of his body, and the transformation between the spiritual realm and reality was rapid. Completed, the ability activated by chakra was instantly activated. Secret technique, thunder. Chi chi chi. Suddenly there was a harsh sound in the sky, and there were countless electric arcs suddenly appeared on the surface of Xiaoli's body in midair, and then as if a chain reaction, the electric arcs were connected to each other and quickly turned into several violent blue and white thunder light. The strong light instantly annihilated Xiaoli's body. Ah 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 ah. The unstable lightning energy raged on Xiaoli frantically, causing Xiaoli to scream constantly. Little Li. Tenten exclaimed worriedly, subconsciously trying to rush over, but Guy shook his head to stop him. Advertisement. Don't worry, Tenten, Xiaoli is fine. Guy is right. Sasuke has been merciful. This trick seems very strong, but in fact this level of thunder and lightning will only make Xiaoli hurt for a while. After a period of rest, it will be fine. It seems that Guy's persuasiveness is insufficient. Iruka added that Iruka still has a certain understanding of the technique developed by Sasuke himself. The principle of this technique is to bury a trace arc controlled by the caster around the target in advance, and then through direct contact, maximize the power of the arc to increase the energy of the arc, and detonate it at the same time. It belongs to the attack method of fixed point blasting, and the limitation is the trace arc. The duration will not be too long, and at the same time, it must directly contact the target to exert its maximum power. Although Xiaoli's face was full of malaise, and even his speech was intermittent, his tone was unusually firm. And this just satisfies Iruka's vengeance. After being a student of Iruka for 5 years, the person who knows Iruka best among the 9 must be Sasuke. Just like just now, he only needs a look, and he understands Iruka's thoughts. Don't look at Xiaoli being beaten badly now. In fact, he didn't suffer any injuries at all. At most, he can recover in half a day. After all, he will take the Chunin exam later. If he is directly disabled, he has to give up the exam. The whole team will miss this chance to be promoted to Chunin. Iruka will not casually ruin other people's lives. Sasuke, who knows this well, naturally distinguishes the importance, otherwise he just hit Xiao Li with the most powerful thunder. Disabled. Hoo-ha. Hoo-ha. Hearing Xiao Li's answer, Sasuke's face was abnormal and did not show a trace of impatience, but a flash of brilliance suddenly flashed. Really, it seems that you also have a will similar to that guy, but unfortunately, you don't have the luck of that guy, so you can never be my opponent now. Thank you for reading this story at mtlarchive.com. Your support enables us to keep the site running. Just teach Xiao Li a little bit to vent his anger for him, don't be cruel. Xiao Li made a heavy gasp, his chest undulating very loudly, more earthy than Iruka's usual linen clothes. The dark green tights were either scorched by lightning or scratched. The hairstyle of the melon head was blackened under the raging electric arc. His hair stood up straight like a steel pin, matching his kappa face, which looked a little funny. Tisk tisk, the second stage of the thunder body technique, relying on the enhanced body response ability to stimulate cell activity, can't fully adapt. It must use Sharingan's insight to control the ultra-high movement speed. It seems that Sasuke does not intend to keep his hands. Guy, if you don't persuade your lover to give up, he will really miss this Chunin competition. Looking at Sasuke, who was even more terrifying than before, Guy's face suddenly sank. Iruka on the side still looked lazy, as if he wouldn't care about what happened. Iruka said lazily, without any intention to stop Sasuke from moving. With that, Sasuke's body suddenly burst out with a blue and white arc that was far more violent than before. The dark blue high-necked shirt was windless and automatic. As the long and narrow bangs swayed back and forth, a pair of sharp black pupils suddenly became extremely weird. The Scarlet Sharingan. Bang. Why? How could I give up? I still have absolutely to implement. Nindo. Xiao Li fell heavily on the ground, but as Iruka said, although he felt that his body was falling apart, it only temporarily affected his actions. In the previous duel between Sasuke and Bai, he used this trick to break Bai's extremely strong ice barrier. There is no doubt about the power, but if you activate the ability without direct contact, the power will be greatly reduced, and you can only barely increase the power of the arc. Detonation will only cause the enemy to be ravaged by the current for a while, and suffer a bit of flesh and blood. Can you still stand up? But, you should almost give up. Sasuke put his hands in the pants kabuto, looked at Xiao Li who was barely standing up not far away, and said calmly, I know myself, the guys who are not strong enough are not interested. If you continue, I won't refuse, but I don't guarantee that you will still be able to take the next Chunin exam. Chapter 127. It's good for Xiao Li to mature earlier, and, I believe your student, Uchiha Sasuke will not be so ignorant. Guy stared at the two opposing people underneath, speaking as plainly as possible, but Iruka could notice that his hands holding the railing were trembling uncontrollably, and the steel railing was about to be broken by his strong grip. Obviously his heart is not as calm as it seems on the surface. Iruka shrugged, non-committal. Sasuke is in a terrifying state at this time. His physical activity has been stimulated to the ultimate that he can reach now. Under the violent current raging, the surrounding porcelain tiles are unknowingly blackened, and you can imagine the surrounding him. How powerful is the electricity? At the same time, under Sharingan, the chakra flow on Xiao Li's body was extremely clear. He could feel that Xiao Li's physical strength was quickly restored under a secret technique, and he would be able to restore his mobility immediately. Upon seeing this, Sasuke's eyes condensed, and his body bends forward slightly in a standard offensive posture. The skin on Xiao Li's face suddenly showed blue veins, his expression gradually became hideous, even his complexion was gradually darkening, his aura rose abruptly, and the debris around him seemed to be echoing the power that he had burst out, gradually being rolled up. Mid-air. 8 inner gates, 3rd gate, born. However, just when Xiao Li was about to use his whole cards, an indifferent voice suddenly sounded behind him. I don't know what moves you are going to use, and I am not interested in knowing. This boring competition is almost over. At the next moment, Xiao Li suddenly felt that the back of his neck was grabbed by a hand, and then he found that his limbs could not move, and only a bluish-white arc was visible from the corner of his eye. The cerebellum, which maintains the balance of the body, is directly paralyzed by the electric current, and the whole body instantly loses strength. Let alone the forced use of 8 inner gates, if it weren't for that hand to maintain his body balance, he would not even be able to stand up. This also means, his life was completely dragged into Sasuke's hands. He lost. Xiao Li looked at the shadow of Sasuke who was gradually dissipating in the air not far away, but no matter how unwilling he was, reality is reality. He didn't even use his whole cards and was completely overpowered by Sasuke. There is no resistance. The victory is divided. Iruka and Guy suddenly appeared beside them. Naruto and others followed. Sasuke let go of Xiao Li and at the same time lifted the thunder technique state, a touch of exhaustion flashed across the handsome face. Although the thunder body technique can greatly enhance the body's activity, the burden on the body is very large. Even if chakra is abundant, it cannot be maintained for a long time. After all, he does not have the non-human body strength to infinitely support the use of thunder body technique. The load brought. Click. Having lost Sasuke's maintenance, Xiao Li, who was still in a paralyzed state, suddenly collapsed to the ground. Tenten ran to help him up, and asked nervously, Xiao Li, are you okay? Advertisement. Xiao Li shook his head. He could feel that he was not physically injured, but his body was temporarily unable to move. As expected, it is Sasuke who defeated the thick eyebrow so quickly, it would definitely take a lot of work if Naruto and I were to do it. Little Sakura took the opportunity to get close to Sasuke as always, admiringly saying good things, and ignoring the unhappy Naruto, but she was right, although they all have the strength to defeat Xiao Li, but the strength that Xiao Li has shown judging from it, they certainly cannot end the battle in a short time. After all, whether it is super dynamic vision or wind control, they cannot have Sasuke's speed that seems to exceed the limit of the human body. Therefore, they have no absolute advantage in physical skills. It will naturally take a lot of work to defeat Xiao Li. But the outcome is unquestionable. Needless to say, Naruto's strength is only slightly worse than Sasuke. Even if it can't solve the battle as smartly as Sasuke, it won't be very strenuous. Little Sakura has super dynamic vision, Xiao Li's movements are easy to see through, and her ability characteristics are originally suitable for practicing physical skills, so she is not counseled at all in close combat. The reason why she acted as an auxiliary in the pre-examination before the role is just because the opponent is too strong. In Quan Mi's normal state, it is equivalent to the speed of thunder body techniques Sasuke. It's better to use physiques to stay behind to help teammates see through Quan Mei's movements, and Xiao Li's physique. Obviously, it was not terrifying to the level of Quan Mei. Hearing this, Sasuke did not react, and still had a cold face. He was not at all proud of Sakura's boasting, nor did he ridicule Xiao Li as the loser, as if he had done a trivial thing. However, Xiao Li's face was pale, as if he had lost his direction in life, his eyes were full of confusion, and he muttered. Mr. Guy, can my Shindo really carry it through? Will there really be rewards after hard work? People without talent can really become stronger than genius through hard work. Guy sighed and was about to say something to comfort Xiao Li, but at this moment, Iruka, who was facing the two of them, suddenly said in a tone that could clearly hear the sarcasm. Is it a good excuse to put the reasons for my failure to the aspect of talent? It's not that I didn't work hard enough, but that I didn't have talent, so I can give up my persistence in peace of mind. Hearing this, Xiao Li looked at Iruka's back in a daze. Do you think you are the only one who has worked hard? Do you mean that others are sleeping while you are working hard? Sasuke can have the current power only by talent. Don't be kidding. I dare say that Sasuke has put in a lot more effort than you. It's true that you are a talented genius, and you have the strong blood of the Uchiha clan. But whoever stipulates that geniuses can't work hard? Think about it. Is your goal to defeat the so-called geniuses to prove that you are better than them, or in order to implement your own forbearance? If it is the former, then I advise you to give up early. When the words fell, Iruka lifted his steps and walked slowly towards the exit. Upon seeing this, Sasuke cast a blank look at Xiao Li inexplicably, and left with Iruka without saying anything. Little Sakura naturally followed. Naruto stayed in place, looking at Sasuke's back. Shen Sheng said to Xiao Li behind him. Looking at the wear and tear on your hands, you must be a very hard worker. But in terms of hard work, Sasuke and I are the same, absolutely not worse than anyone. In order to be recognized by Mr. Iruka, we have never slackened. So, please don't doubt Mr. Iruka's words, the price we have to pay for our current strength is definitely much more than you. After speaking, Naruto left. Mr. Guy, although there was still confusion on Xiao Li's face, it was much lighter than at the beginning. He had obviously listened to Iruka's words. Upon seeing this, Guy couldn't help but feel a little grateful to Iruka. No need to say anything, Xiao Li. Guy suddenly hugged Xiao Li, and the two of them burst into tears at the same time, causing Tenten beside him to cover his forehead. Even though he had seen this picture countless times, she still couldn't accept it. Chapter 128. Iruka, Naruto, Sasuke and little Sakura went to the third floor and then separated. After all, Iruka had to go to the classroom where the examiner assembled, and they had to go to classroom 301. When Naruto opened the door of the classroom and looked inside, he was surprised to find that the huge classroom was full of people. A lot of weird guys. It seems that this Chunin exam will not be boring anymore. Naruto said with a foul face, and then lifted up his footsteps and walked into this obviously depressing classroom first. Hey, pushy guy, little Sakura murmured in dissatisfaction. In her opinion, it was Sasuke who took the lead to suppress the audience. Naruto's lead would only make her absolutely lower. There is really no sense of superiority standing next to him. There is no way to be with Sasuke. Compared to, Naruto's dressing is really frustrating. It didn't matter who Sasuke took the lead. When he walked in, he was immediately surrounded by a familiar figure, and the next moment he heard Ino's elated voice. Sasuke, long time no see, I miss you so much. Upon seeing this, little Sakura's face was suddenly full of anger, pointing to Ino and shouting, Ino pig, let me go Sasuke. Ah, isn't this an ugly monster with a wide forehead? Long time no see, you are still so annoying. Can you say that again? Sasuke seemed to have gotten used to Ino's stickiness, but his face was a little helpless, and he didn't break free. Anyway, he knew that Ino would leave consciously after a while, so he didn't bother about it. Just when little Sakura and Ino got into the daily quarrel of the past 9 people practicing together because of Sasuke, other people also noticed the 3 people at the door and walked over. Sure enough, you guys are here too. Really, it was so difficult to get through to graduation. I didn't need Tenten to practice. As a result, I had to get busy again because of the Chunin exam, and I was so troubled. Shikamaru complained as always, his face was full of disgust. His personality was somewhat similar to Iruka, so when Iruka resisted the examiner's job, he also resisted the exam, but the reality is always so helpless. Like Iruka, you have to do it if you don't want to do it. I haven't seen you for so long, Shikamaru, did you patronize and turn on the complaining mode? Ya is still as energetic as usual, with a confident smile on his face. Compared to this, we are likely to be opponents in the Chunin exam, you guys. Didn't you look forward to it a little bit? There is nothing to look forward to. If you want to ask why, in a one-on-one match, no one is an opponent of Naruto and Sasuke. If you encounter it, you think you are unlucky, and there is no chance for a group confrontation. Hey, Shino, you guy is really boring. Quote. Hinata walked to Naruto and replied shyly. Naruto, these past few days, thank you for your hard work. She was talking about the things that Naruto has been with her to practice in the past few days. Since graduation, the 9 of them have not been unfamiliar with each other because of their different teams, but they will not get together all day. Only Naruto and Hinata are from time to time. They will practice together. After all, they have always been in a fixed combination when they were students, and habits become natural, and they naturally want to find each other to accompany them when they practice. It's just that Hinata is a little dissatisfied recently, because Sasuke always let Naruto accompany him to practice, and let little Sakura accompany her to practice. Although little Sakura with super dynamic vision is more suitable for her sparring than Naruto, she still wants to with Naruto. Oh, you said this, you should be grateful to little Sakura, I haven't been able to help much lately. Naruto scratched his head and said embarrassedly. Except for Naruto and Hinata, the others have not seen each other for a month or two due to different teams. They all started to talk about the latest situation. After all, they are partners who have practiced together for 5 years, and they have long had a deep bond with each other. Even Sasuke rarely joined the topic. Just when there was no one beside the few people chatting, a gentle voice suddenly sounded behind them. I said, it's better for you to be quiet. Although I don't mind, those ninjas who are not from the same village are not as easy to talk as I am. Hearing the words, everyone immediately stopped talking, and then looked at the person who reminded them with some discomfort. In a word, he looks harmless to humans and animals. He is much older than Naruto. His white hair is tied into a ponytail behind his head. He wears Konoha forehead protector on his forehead, plus a pair of round glasses. A good image of a big brother next door. You are the 9 newcomers who are called the strongest graduates in history, right? I advise you to pay more attention to the occasion of chatting. The strongest graduate ever. How famous are we? Naruto, who only noticed a certain word in the people's words that he liked to hear, suddenly became overwhelmed. Little Sakura gave Naruto a white look, and then asked with some caution. Advertisement. Who are you? My name is Kabuto. Compared to this, should you pay more attention to the atmosphere here? Kabuto said, glanced behind him, and motioned them to look over. Then they found that everyone in the classroom looked at them with a chill, apparently because they were dissatisfied with the conversation that no one else was around. After all, there were only 9 of them talking in the entire classroom. It was too garish and it was easy to recruit other people. 4. Everyone will be nervous before the exam, so you better not be too. Kabuto reminded him kindly, but before he could finish his words, Sasuke suddenly laughed contemptuously, and then said without lowering the volume. Guys who are nervous even for such boring exams, why should I care about their thoughts? After the words, Sakura and Ino suddenly looked at Sasuke with red stars. So handsome, as expected of Sasuke, so handsome in everything he says. Although they are used to the daily idiots of Ino and Sakura, other people can't help but cover their foreheads with helpless expressions. They also know that Sasuke is handsome and the strength is also the strongest of them, but you can't be good here all day long. Sasuke is handsome here, right? You can hear the cocoon in your ears. Although it's very upset that Sasuke is showing up, but he is right. People who are not confident will be nervous. Naruto said that he suddenly passed the crowd, and then pointed at the candidate below with an arrogant expression, and said loudly. My name is Uzumaki Naruto, and the man who will inherit the Hokage name one day will never lose to you guys with weak tires. Hearing this provocative declaration, the faces of everyone underneath suddenly became hard to look. Hey, it's that kid again. If he has some strength, he makes enemies everywhere. This guy must be a short-lived ghost. Konkuro in the crowd was very unhappy and cursed in a low voice. Gaara on the side seemed to have not heard it. He just glanced at Naruto and little Sakura with cold eyes, then turned his head, obviously not paying attention to Naruto's provocation. Although other people are equally upset about Naruto's arrogance, they are all restraining. After all, as a ninja, you must have a basic calmness. Ninjas like Naruto who seem to be on fire at any time are still relatively rare. However, not everyone just swallowed Naruto's words, only heard the sound of a few words from the crowd suddenly, and then 3 agile figures suddenly appeared more and more, leaping high and kicking at the same time. To Naruto. Smelly boy, I will tell you to close that stinky mouth now. It's actually even more arrogant than my uncle, looking for death. Let my sister teach you what politeness is. Upon seeing this, the other ninjas underneath secretly applauded. They had already seen the loudest stinky kid upset, but they didn't want to do it because of caution. Now someone is willing to help them, they naturally hope that Naruto will be beaten up. To find teeth. It's just that their hope can only be hope, and it won't turn into reality at all. Looking at the 3 genins who were obviously older than him, Naruto suddenly twitched his mouth. Finally it's my turn to show off. However, when Naruto quickly refined chakra. Byakugan. A familiar soft drink suddenly sounded behind him, and then he suddenly felt a beautiful figure flashing beside him. Before he could react, he suddenly heard a series of Pop pop. Sounds in front of him, and then he saw a familiar figure stood in front of him, and a few quick movements with small hands blocked the three quite tall genin. Hinata, let me. Naruto, who reacted, hurriedly stopped Hinata. There was a rare opportunity to show off. How could he be ruined by Hinata? However, before Naruto's voice, the three genin who had attacked aggressively fell down suddenly without warning. Although they did not lose consciousness, the eyes of Hinata's weak-looking figure were full of horror, and they were obviously lost. Intent to fight. Naruto, Naruto, I will never let others hurt you. Naruto raised his hand weakly and looked at other genin who was taking the exam not far away. He looked at the deep jealous look in Hinata's eyes. His face suddenly became a little slumped, and he responded with a smile that was uglier than crying. Thanks, thank you, Hinata. Chapter 129. Why is it so hard to come up with the limelight? Good job, Hinata. Fortunately, you are the one who made the shot. If Naruto is the guy, he will definitely be very awkward after hitting the three unrelenting genin just now. I don't see Naruto being overwhelmed. Little Sakura gave Hinata a thumbs up, and at the same time gave Naruto a gloomy look. Upon seeing this, Naruto couldn't help but feel even more depressed. If he gets out of the limelight and is despised by little Sakura, it doesn't matter. You can have a fart addiction to someone protected by a little girl. And being protected by Hinata always makes him feel weird. Naruto, am I being nosy? Hinata said to Naruto weakly, that the appearance of that soft girl is not like a powerful person who killed two big guys and a female guy in a second, but the fact is such a nonsense, and it also makes people clearly realize that people are not appearances. Reason. No, Hinata, don't think about it. Naruto quickly denied that he didn't want Hinata to care about this incident. Yes, is it? That's good. Hinata breathed a sigh of relief. At this moment, Kabuto on the side suddenly interjected. As expected of the best graduates, it seems that you are likely to pass this Chunin exam. Haha, as a senior, I will let me give you some information about this exam. Although you seem to be very strong, it doesn't hurt to know some useful information. As he said, he took out a stack of cards from the ninja bag and continued, this is the ninja card. It contains the information I collected 7 times over the past 4 years. Many candidates have detailed personal information. Yes, how? Do you have any goals that are of particular interest? Naruto and the others didn't seem to hear it, and obviously didn't have any interest. However, surprisingly, Sasuke, who had always been the most arrogant, spoke. I'm not interested in those weak guys, but I'm interested in your purpose of approaching us. Hearing that, Kabuto's eyes hidden in the reflective glasses suddenly flashed with a cold light, but there was no panic on his face, and he still smiled and said. What are you talking about? I just want to help the newcomers in the same village. Although vigilance is very important for ninjas, it's not a good thing to be too vigilant. It's easy to become a coward. Sasuke pulled out his hands in Kabuto's pants. The next moment, a few arcs flashed across his palm, and the corner of his mouth hooked, revealing a sneer. There is no grace for no reason, even ninjas from the same village exist. Competition, you will not easily share the information you have with your opponents. The 9 of us are able to communicate so without any worries because of special reasons. And you are just an outsider and there is no reason to provide us with information. Then, you can provide information by providing information. What is the purpose of approaching us? Crackling. The blue and white arc gradually became violent, causing Sasuke's momentum to continue to rise. Just looking at it could give people a feeling of heart palpitations inexplicably, and the genins who watched them all around couldn't help but swallow their mouths and were timid. Even the idea of giving up the exam came up. Sasuke, who had already possessed the spiritual realm at the age of 7's thinking is definitely not comparable to that of an ordinary 12-year-old. The reason why he is the strongest among Iruka's 9 key students is not only because of his strength, but his the mind that is not much inferior to Shikamaru is also one of the main reasons. If you treat him as an ordinary kid, it will definitely be the other party who suffers in the end. Hearing Sasuke's words, the others looked at Kabuto vigilantly, and the atmosphere suddenly became tense. I really don't have any bad intentions. Since you don't want to believe me, then forget it, count me as passionate. After speaking, Kabuto put the ninja card back into the bag and left very bachelor. Sasuke and the others didn't mean to embarrass Kabuto. After all, it was just a suspicion. No matter how Kabuto was also Konoha's ninja in name and an examinee, they had no reason to embarrass him. Wow, Sasuke is great, none of us noticed that there was a problem with that guy. Only Sasuke noticed. As expected, he is the man I'm after. Advertisement. As always, Ino stuck to Sasuke whenever she had a chance, but when she tried to use her hands to circle Sasuke's neck, Sasuke first walked to Shikamaru, surrounded by boys, and Ino could only give up this idea. It's not just me, Shikamaru, Shino, you should have also noticed that there is a problem with that guy, right? Regardless of the fact that Sasuke always only has practice in Isshin, he doesn't care about other things at all. In fact, for his companions who have practiced together for 5 years, his understanding of the other 8 people is absolutely not bad. In his perception, Shikamaru his brain is definitely the smartest of them all, even he has to admit that he is a little bit inferior, and Shino is average, but his analytical ability is not weak. As for the others, to be honest, Sakura is a typical good student who reads a dead book. Ino, Ya and Hinata are very average in analytical skills, while Naruto and Choji. Forget it, not to mention it. Probably you can tell, if you want to ask why, when others are nervous about the exam, He, Genin, who hasn't passed the Chunin exam 7 times, has some time to help some of our newcomers. It feels strange to think about it. It's so troublesome, I don't bother to care about that kind of hypocritical guy. This year's 9 graduates are divided into 3 ninja teams. Each team has ninjas who are good at analysis. Sasuke from Class 7, Shino from Class 8, and Shikamaru from Class 10 are the brains of the entire team. In this sense, this sorting is the most reasonable. After Kabuto left, the 9 people chatted again without anyone else. Not long after, the classroom door was suddenly opened. A tall man with a black headscarf on his head and an examiner's uniform, as well as a black coat, walked in through the front door of the classroom with a group of examiners. As soon as the headed man walked in, he realized that there was something wrong with the atmosphere inside. I saw that the ninjas in the outer village had the opportunity to stare in a certain direction intentionally or unintentionally, with obvious dissatisfaction in their eyes, and at the same time deep fear, giving people a feeling of daring to speak. When he followed the eyes of those people, he saw 9 little ghosts who were wearing Konoha forehead protector, and looked at from the outside, who were never more than 12 years old, were gathering together and chatting, and there was nothing on their faces. Facing the urgency of the promotion exam, which is extremely important to Genin, they are more like coming to meet and chat than exams. It is in sharp contrast to those Genin who can show the tension of facing unknown exams from their faces. Not to mention other things, they have already exploded a few blocks of other people in terms of their psychological quality. 9 imps, they still look like rookies. So that's it, they are the most outstanding graduates of Konoha that has been rumored recently, huh? It seems that this Chunin selection exam will be very interesting. Single quote. Thinking about this, as the chief examiner, he coughed twice and kindly reminded Naruto to pay attention to the occasion. When Naruto and the others saw the examiner coming, they stopped talking and walked towards the seat below. Upon seeing this, the examiner secretly nodded, then walked to the podium and said loudly. I'm impatient, right? My name is Umino Iruka. I am the invigilator for the first exam of the Chunin selection exam. Now I will start preparing for the first session of the Chunin selection exam. Submit your application form in order for me to confirm. Click, and then receive the number plate and go to the corresponding position. After all the staff are ready, they will issue a test paper. Hearing this, Naruto, whose school theory class grades turned into a shit, was shocked. Written examination. The little student Sakura on the side looked at Naruto meaningfully, covered her mouth, and said with a smile, come on, Naruto, don't ask me in Sasuke's hind legs. Not far away, Iruka, who was sitting near the wall in the classroom preparing for the invigilation work, couldn't help but shook her head when she saw Sakura teasing Naruto, and muttered. Laughing too early, you will cry when you know the rules, little Sakura. Chapter 130 Written Exam. When Abizi finished the rules, Naruto underneath was so panicked that he couldn't find north, but Iruka didn't worry about it. The most important question in this exam was the 10th question. Based on his understanding of his students, it's impossible to be scared. Iruka has no interest at all in this test, which can be passed even if he turns in a blank paper. Therefore, he slumped on a chair when Ibixi explained, threw the cheating record form on the ground, and fell asleep. When the other examiners saw this, they couldn't help but twitch their mouths and wanted to remind him to be responsible for their work, but when they thought of Uchiha Izumi behind Iruka, they couldn't help but give up this idea in an anguish. You know, there have been a few people who couldn't understand Iruka before. An ordinary teacher Chunin was better than himself, so he ridiculed him a few words, and the result was an incident in which a furious Izumi came to the door and beat him up. It's better not to provoke this guy. Even from the corner of Abizi's eye, seeing Iruka swaying asleep, he only frowned. Although he was very upset with his work attitude, he was worried about not saying anything to remind him. The exam lasts 1 hour, then, the exam begins. As if trying to vent his inner dissatisfaction, Ibis's voice was much louder than usual. Looking at the questions on the scroll, Naruto gradually started to tremble, and soon afterwards, Sasuke found that the above 9 questions could only barely make 2 or 3. These questions are estimated to be only the little Sakura who is good at school theoretical knowledge. It's done. After thinking about it a little bit, almost everyone except Naruto and Choji figured out that the real content of this test is to examine the examinee's ability to collect information by using camouflage and concealment techniques, so that it can be scored by deduction. It makes sense. After thinking about it, several people who were closer to each other looked at each other, and then nodded tacitly. Sasuke made a special gesture at Naruto. Although Ino not far behind him was a bit reluctant, he still nodded slightly to express his understanding. In the next moment, Ino's voice rang in Naruto's mind. Naruto, listen well, Sakura can answer these questions. After she finishes answering, I will use mystery to invade her spirit, write down the answers and tell you, you will wait for me and listen to what I understand. Just nodded. Hearing this, Naruto suddenly realized that this was the secret technique of the Yamanaka family. After all, they had been together for 5 years, and they knew each other well and knew the secret technique of each family, so he immediately understood Ino's plan. Nodded without hesitation, Naruto finally felt relieved, no longer looking around, waiting with peace of mind. If it's a team of 3, Sakura, who doesn't have any secret skills other than superpowers, can't help Naruto even if she can do these questions, but Sasuke doesn't have to worry about her, but just like her, she can only help her. Watching Naruto hand in a blank paper, but a group of 9 people is different. They can make up for each other's shortcomings. This kind of test is a piece of cake for them. Comma 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 comma. While a group of genin was undergoing a tense Chunin exam, on the avenue outside Konoha village, a shadow walked slowly towards the gate, and soon entered the line of sight of the ninja guarding the gate. The visitor did not intend to hide his face, and the two guard ninjas could easily determine that it was a young woman. Wearing a black sleeveless high-necked top, matching white shorts underneath, a black fishnet suit inside, two daggers on his back, long black hair tied into a ponytail and hanging down to the waist, exquisite irrelevant collocation with a perfect face of melon seeds, and a certain silhouette that still looks ready to emerge even in a relatively conservative dress, she always reveals a majestic temperament. When she was about to walk to the gate of the village, the two ninja guards finally recovered from her amazing beauty, thinking about the routine interrogation in the past, when an old voice suddenly came from behind the two. I'm back, Crescent Moon. The two turned their heads, and the next moment they saw third generation in Hokage robes standing blankly behind them with a pipe in his mouth. They were shocked and hurriedly said, Master Hokage. Third generation nodded and responded to their greetings. However, they kept watching, stopping, and looking at the crescent moon with some kind of light that they couldn't understand. Long time no see, Master Hokage. Come with me and say something on the way. As he said, third generation turned around and walked towards a street in the village where pedestrians are usually rare. An inexplicable figure flashed in Zan Yu's eyes, and he nodded slightly, and then followed in the footsteps of third generation. At this time, the two guards finally, I saw a conspicuous group fan logo on the clothes behind Crescent Moon. Advertisement. That clan emblem is the Uchiha clan. The two looked at each other, and both could see shock in each other's eyes. You must know that since the Uchiha clan was exterminated by Uchiha Itachi, apart from Uchiha Itachi himself, there were only 3 survivors. Among them, Uchiha Izumi is known as Konoha's strongest rookie. A technician, Sharingan Kakashi, and Blue Beast Might Guy are comparable to the strong, and Uchiha Sasuke has also gained fame recently. The existence of the two makes the Uchiha clan's prestige still exudes warmth in Konoha. As for the last survivor, because the village concealed Uchiha's extermination, although the ordinary ninja knew that there was such a person, he didn't even know the name of the survivor. It was just heard that she was sent out by third generation to perform a confidential mission, has disappeared since then. Unexpectedly, such a mysterious existence would suddenly appear at the door of the village, and third Hokage would come to greet him in person. One can imagine her weight in third generation's mind. At the same time, as ordinary ninjas, they finally knew the name of the last survivor of the Uchiha clan. Uchiha Crescent Moon. Since you came back this way, that is to say, are you going to officially return to Konoha? Thank you for reading this story at mtlarchive.com. Your support enables us to keep the site running. Hearing this lie that would be broken by the jab, Shanyu shrugged indifferently, then the corner of his mouth twitched slightly, revealing a touching smile. Third generation took 2 cigarettes, and while walking in a certain direction, he asked the Crescent Moon beside him. Several robes hidden in black or white, wearing a kabuto cap on his head, and Anbu, who covered his face with a mask, appeared next to third generation, and at the same time, he pulled out the sword and watched the Crescent Moon vigilantly. Seeing this, Zan Yu's delicate face did not have a trace of tension. Instead, he chuckled and said meaningfully, Master Hokage, what do you mean? Don't you welcome me back? Whoosh whoosh. About this, there is a place that can make everyone above feel at ease, and I can also accept it. Hokage-sama, is this also what you want to say? Feeling the aura of Hokage, who once ruled the world of shinobi and has been in charge of Konoha for decades, Crescent Moon also stopped, squinting his eyes slightly, and staring at third generation unchanged. The aggressive confrontation of cage-level powerhouses is terrifying. Hearing that, third generation's eyes condensed. After speaking, the aura of the two disappeared invisible at the same time, and the latter two were able to influence the future existence of the village with their own power and walked towards a certain apartment in the village in a strange atmosphere. Hee hee. It's about peace of mind. It's just that you have thought about it a lot, but it seems that your thoughts are the same as mine. Then I won't talk nonsense. Come with me, you probably haven't been there before. Almost. After all, as Konoha's ninja, no matter what happens, as long as I am not dead, I will come back sooner or later, of course. Xuanyu smiled slightly, without a trace of unnaturalness on her face, as if she was speaking. One thing that has nothing to do with me is generally, if Hokage-sama thinks I am not a Konoha shinobi, then I have nothing to say. Even if I leave Konoha, I will still be Uchiha shinobi of the Uchiha clan. In other words, is it just the Uchiha Crescent Moon of the Uchiha clan, not Konoha's Uchiha Crescent Moon? Single quote. The chakra of the two collided in the air. In this unpopulated street, a violent click suddenly sounded in the air. The soil under the feet of the two gradually began to crack and spread quickly to the surroundings. The entire space seemed to freeze, causing Anbu, who was secretly protecting Hokage not far away, to breathe. Stopped, turned around, and stared straight into the eyes of Crescent Moon, while an astonishing momentum swept towards Crescent Moon. Third generation's old eyes flashed, and while denying it, he raised his hand and signaled the Anbu to retreat. After their figures disappeared completely, they continued, it's just that the area where the Uchiha clan is located has been demolished. Now, I'm thinking about how to arrange a place for you. After all, you are a member of the Uchiha clan who has made a great contribution to Konoha's prosperity. It's too shameful for you to live in a hotel. I didn't expect to be misunderstood by the young people who protected me. No, nothing like that. The Uchiha clan will always be a member of Konoha. Of course I welcome you back. Chapter 131 Uchiha Crescent Moon. Iruka woke up when he fell to the ground by an unnatural wind. When he stood up slowly while rubbing his aching head, he suddenly heard an imposing shout. I'm Mitarashi Anko, the chief examiner of the second exam. The next exam will start right away, and everyone will come with me. The examiner. Mitarashi Anko. What the hell? The first exam is over. Single quote. Thinking about this, Iruka raised his head and looked at the speaker. However, he almost fell to the ground without a butt. His sleepiness disappeared instantly when he saw the familiar face, especially the purple-black head. With her short hair, Iruka just feels her breathing is much faster. The familiar beige windbreaker, the familiar fishnet suit and the beige short skirt are the woman I only recognized before, who was once seen by Iruka, although the charming picture in his mind has long been treasured by countless pictures of him. The more impactful pictures were replaced, but he couldn't forget the embarrassing incident. She definitely can't be recognized by her. Thinking about this, Iruka found that Anko's attention was all on the candidates, and he was relieved immediately, turned his back to Anko, and tried to get close to the examiners next to him, using their bodies as a cover. Anko didn't notice the small movements of one of the examiners below, because she found that the result of her imposing speech was actually it was cold. No one cares about you. Anko curled his lips and glanced at the candidate underneath. Oh, 45 people, 15 groups. It's a bit more than expected, but it doesn't matter. See if I can go straight to half of the second exam. Hearing this, the Naruto underneath did not respond at all. After all, in their opinion, only the other 8 people are threatening to themselves. If they have to fight with one of the other 8 people in the next exam, they can only be promoted. Then just give up. There is no need to break the test and destroy the bond that was established after 5 years of getting along with each other, but if it is a point-to-point test, it doesn't matter. Anyway, this exam will be better than the next time. Therefore, the 9 of them are almost the calmest among all the candidates, which attracted Anko's attention. Okay, the specific rules will be discussed later in the examination room, now come with me first. After Anko left the classroom with all the candidates, Iruka finally felt relieved. If Konoha is the last person he wants to meet, Anko is definitely the first existence. After all, he was not the fault of the bathhouse incident. In essence, he took advantage. Izumi is okay. After all, she was just a 13-year-old girl at the time. She just saw it and it was no big deal, but Shion-yu and Anko were both girls back then, so Iruka always faced Anko and Shion-yu. Will be inexplicably guilty. Now Iruka is a little fortunate that when arranging examination work before, he fought hard with third generation, and only acted as the examiner for the first examination. The rest of the examinations have nothing to do with him. Therefore, other examiners are still preparing for the second examination. At that time, he became an idler and didn't need to participate in the second exam. Otherwise, according to the regulations, he must obey the examination work arranged by the chief examiner. He would have to face Anko directly. The ghost knew whether she would recognize him. Iruka, who had nothing to do, left the school with a relaxed and comfortable expression. It is only in the afternoon. Izumi is not at home because of a task, so if he goes home, he has to cook by himself. This pair of him has been lazy for 5 years. It's really a torture, and the treasures that were wiped out by Izumi last time have to be added. While thinking like this, Iruka walked towards the bookstore on foot, and it took more than half an hour to select more than 10 books of his favorite type. After putting these precious things in a big bag, Iruka thought about it a little bit. He carried the bag and walked towards the Eel Ramen restaurant. After the last time Izumi's toxic seafood ramen baptism, Iruka's taste buds finally eased after more than a month, and suddenly wanted to taste the taste of ramen, especially eel ramen. After walking at a walking pace for more than 2 hours, when the sun gradually set, Iruka finally walked to the Eel Ramen restaurant. When I opened the door curtain and walked in, there were only 2 guests inside. The calamus seemed to be absent, and only Uncle Yeel was busy working alone. When he heard someone coming in, Uncle Yeel habitually said, "Welcome." When he saw that it was Iruka, his squinted and kind eyes suddenly opened slightly, and then he used a familiar one. Luo said in a tone. "Yeah, Mr. Iruka, you're here, it's been a long time since I saw you. I don't know if it's an illusion." Iruka always feels that Uncle Yeel's voice seems to have deliberately increased a bit. The 2 ninjas who were eating ramen on the side looked over curiously when they saw Iruka's rather dark scar. When he faced his face, a flash of contempt suddenly flashed over the corner of his eyes, and he clearly knew Iruka, Konoha's famous soft rice man. "Well, it's been a long time since I saw you, please give me a big bowl of miso pork bone ramen." Advertisement. Okay, Mr. Iruka, a big bowl of miso tonkatsu ramen. So do you have to shout out directly? Iruka looked helplessly at the busy Uncle Yeel. Every time I came here, I always felt that Uncle Yeel's reaction was weird. This time it was even stranger than usual. It felt like he was calculating. What's the same? However, Iruka still feels that he is nervous. Uncle Ramen is not particularly familiar with him, and he has no grudges. How could he count him? Only Quan Mei, the disobedient girl, was planning how to trick him all day. Not long after, Uncle Yeel put the hot ramen in front of Iruka. Iruka broke off his chopsticks and started directly. After a long absence, he tasted the real taste of ramen. Iruka almost didn't burst into tears and was caught by the bowl of seafood ramen by Izumi. The shadow of the ramen that was created finally dissipated completely, and in 3 or 2 strokes, the bowl that was bigger than his face became smooth, and even the soup was finished. Huh, so full. Iruka touched her belly, said with a happy face, and then took out her wallet from Kabuto in her arms to prepare for the checkout. At this moment, the door curtain behind Uncle Yeel was suddenly opened. The next moment, one was wearing a pink dress. With a small bag on her shoulder, a beautiful girl with long chestnut shawl hair came out. He seemed to know that Iruka was here, so he looked at Iruka in surprise, and then said politely. Hello, Mr. Iruka. Chanku always forgets the time when shopping alone. It makes me worry every time. Mr. Iruka, if you have nothing to do while waiting, can I trouble you to accompany the Calamus? If you are accompanied, I will rest assured. As soon as the voice fell, Chanku hadn't responded yet, Uncle Yeel on the side suddenly interjected. After all, the girl in the previous life was a girl with a strong personality, and her way of speaking was completely different from that of ordinary women. She couldn't feel the gentleness that a woman should have at all, so he reacted as soon as Chanku spoke. Hearing that, Chanku couldn't help but his eyes twitched. Unexpectedly, her careful dressing only resulted in a misunderstanding, and Iruka's uncle's tone like an elder also made her feel a little weird. She knew that Iruka was just a 22-year-old young man. People's age difference is less than 5 years old, and at most they can only be regarded as big brothers. They are not qualified to preach to themselves on the topic of youth. Are you, Calamus? Iruka groaned, then asked casually. Mr. Iruka, you are misunderstood. I just want to go out and go shopping. I heard that there is a nice new clothing store in Chuako 2nd Street. I want to stop by while shopping. Sure enough, I'm going to see my boyfriend, right? Haha. Chanku also cherishes his beautiful youth, so go for it. It's just that they look alike, their personalities are too different, and they are completely different in nature. Iruka doesn't directly use Calamus as her substitute, but when he sees Calamus, he will inevitably have some nostalgia for the past life. Iruka almost saw the aura of the young girl in front of her as a figure deeply imprinted in her mind, because she usually likes pink attire, plus 2 almost identical faces, which makes Iruka have a kind of chaotic time and space. The illusion, fortunately, Chengfu spoke in a gentle tone at the end, which made Iruka come back to his senses. Chengfu nodded. Seeing this, Iruka kindly reminded. Thank you for reading this story at mtlarchive.com. Your support enables us to keep the site running. Sorry, I usually see you always wearing work clothes. The first time I saw you wearing casual clothes, I couldn't recognize it. Forgive me, by the way, you are dressed in this picture. Iruka said, suddenly noticed that Chengfu's face was lightly makeup, her mouth was obviously painted with pink lip gloss, and her eyes were also painted with eyeshadow. His temperament was obviously similar to that of the hardworking and capable girl next door in the past. The difference, after a little thought, he thought of a certain possibility, suddenly the corner of his mouth twitched, and he smiled. Then you remember to go home early. Although the security in the village is pretty good, there are still some ill-intentioned guys. It's not good to be entangled by them. However, the current priority is to quickly deny it, otherwise it would be really troublesome to make Iruka misunderstand that he has a lover. Oh, that's it, are you going shopping alone? Chapter 132. As night falls, when the lights are on. Mr. Iruka, I'm so sorry to trouble you. Walking on the noisy street, surrounded by bustling people, the bustling level has reached the point where you will lose your companions if you don't pay attention, so Chengfu always pulls Iruka's clothes corners with his hands, but is he worried about losing him? Then only she knows. It's okay. Anyway, I'm just idle. I haven't strolled around in a long time. I just happened to be together. Iruka, who put his hands in his pants Kabuto, said casually such social rhetoric, but it was just polite. To be honest, Uncle Yeel would rarely ask him once, and Chengfu also looked at him hopefully. With his regularity in life, he had already gone home to sleep a long time ago, so there would be some ghost streets. By the way, since I came into this world, it seems that the women around me are not the little Sakura Hinata, these little kids are girls who are too different from their own ages like Izumi Ayame. I really feel a little sad when I think about it. Damn it, even if it is me, occasionally I want to have a beautiful encounter with a beauty of a similar age. If you think about it this way, even the terrible encounter with Xuanyu is worthy of memory. Sure enough, my life is a large collection of coffee tables. With negative thoughts in her mind, Iruka sighed inexplicably, talking with the Calamus, and gradually passing through the dense flow of people. Coming to a street with few pedestrians, although there are still pedestrians, at least it will not take a few steps as hard as before. Iruka raised his head and looked at the street sign, Chuako Ichiban Street. According to the direction marked on it, turn left and walk for another 5 or 6 minutes. It should be there. After confirming the direction, he talked to Chengpu and was about to leave, and then suddenly felt that the corners of his clothes were still being grasped hard. Chengpu, it's not very crowded here. Huh, oh, I see. A chorus responded, and then walked to Iruka, and did not follow Iruka like a stalker like before, but somehow her hand still clinging to Iruka's clothing corner did not let go. Worshipping here, I think Iruka will have to iron her clothes after returning. Looking at the Calamus standing next to him a head shorter than himself, Iruka couldn't help but twitched his mouth. He felt that his meaning was already obvious, but he did not expect the Calamus to understand other strange things. Just about to remind again, at this moment, a surprised voice suddenly sounded behind the two of them. Huh, Mr. Iruka. Hearing someone calling himself, Iruka turned his head subconsciously, and then he saw Red and Asuma in ninja costumes walking towards him side by side. Yeah, too, it's such a coincidence. Are you dating? Iruka still knows the tricks of Hong and Asuma. This is no secret. After all, he used to be colleagues with Asuma and Hong. At that time, he could see that the relationship between the two was extraordinary, but he used to I have always been too lazy to sort out the interpersonal relationship, so the relationship with them is only to the extent that I will nod my head to deal with it. When Hong noticed the Calamus standing next to Iruka, especially when she noticed that her little hand was holding Iruka's clothes, her face suddenly became stunned for some reason, and she ignored Iruka's ridicule, rather questioning. Ms. Iruka, who is she? What the hell? What's the matter with the expression of catching R***? Single quote. Iruka looked at Hong with some doubts. She really couldn't figure out why she looked at herself with scumbag eyes. Just about to talk, Chenku stood up and Chao Shengsheng introduced herself. Hello, my name is Chenku and I am a friend of Iruka's teacher. Because my father is worried that I will go out alone, please trouble Mr. Iruka to come with me. That, are you? A chorus. Oh, so you are a Calamus. Hong squinted her eyes and took a meaningful look at Chenku. She seemed to have heard the name of Chenku somewhere. She did not face the jerky tone of the person who met for the first time, but continued with quite familiarity. My name is Hong. I used to be a colleague of Mr. Iruka. I am glad to meet you. Hearing this, Chenku asked with some doubts. Teacher Hong, do you know me? I'm Jonan, the leader of Hinata. I heard her mention you. Compared to this, Mr. Iruka. Hong suddenly turned and looked at Iruka with a sharp look. Faith is forbidden. What? Iruka looked at Red with a dazed face, but Red didn't mean to explain at all. After speaking, he followed Asuma, who appeared and said nothing but said hello, towards the corner of the street where they came. Left. That, Mr. Iruka, did I cause you to be misunderstood by Mr. Hong? How about we go over and explain it to Mrs. Hong? Advertisement. Chenku said with an apologetic face, but Iruka shook his head. It's okay. It's not once or twice to be misunderstood. Don't worry about it. That's right. For him, who was secretly despised by a large group of ninjas because of Azumi's relationship, and was also dubbed the name, Soft Rice Man, this level of misunderstanding is not a big deal. Anyway, he is not afraid of shadows, whether it is Chenku is still Kwanmei, and in his eyes he is just a little girl. In fact, he doesn't bother to pay attention to other people's opinions. After strolling around, Iruka and Chengfu came to the main destination this time, which is where Chengfu wants to buy clothes. Ms. Iruka, what do you think of this? Chengfu took out a beige dress from the hanger, placed it in front of him, gestured and asked Iruka. Well, it's okay. Iruka just glanced casually, and then said with an obvious perfunctory tone. After hearing this, Chengfu frowned and tried 2 more items, but Iruka still reacted the same. Ms. Iruka, Chengfu pursed his lips in dissatisfaction. Yin, it's pretty good. Some distracted Iruka habitually responded. To tell the truth, it was boring to accompany the little girl to try on clothes and express his thoughts. It is strange that he can cheer up. Unexpectedly, I haven't seen it for so many years. Back then, the scarred pervert who liked to peep at the bottom of other people's skirts, and openly broke into the female bathhouse, turned into a scumbag man. Sure enough, after the Konoha police department was disbanded, you were a restless person like you. It will become rampant immediately, Mr. Iruka. However, just when he subconsciously wanted to say something to apologize, a voice that made him familiar suddenly sounded behind him. She saw her arms akimbo, staring at Iruka angrily. Her tone no longer suppressed her tone as usual, but said in a rather boyish voice. Thank you for reading this story at mtlarchive.com. Your support enables us to keep the site running. Xuanyu, when did you come back? I think pink is best for you, so. Although she hadn't seen her in 5 years, Iruka recognized Crescent Moon all at once, because compared to her as a girl 5 years ago, her appearance hasn't changed much now, and Iruka is not even connected. The faces of acquaintances are too lazy to remember. Ms. Iruka, do you hate me so much? I hate it to the point that I feel impatient even for a little time with me. If so, then I just go back and forget it, so as not to upset you. Not long after, a series of screams of men screaming when they were ravaged by women suddenly sounded around, but Iruka didn't bother to care about these. He looked at the pretty woman standing in front of him in surprise. It's been almost 6 hours, but compared to this, should you explain what is going on with the little girl next to you? If I let Kwanmi know that you go shopping with other girls, it will kill you. As her sister, I can't just ignore it. Xuanyu did not notice Iruka's gaze that had stayed for less than 0.1 second. She looked at her irises with an inexplicable hostile gaze ever since she appeared. The corner of her mouth twitched slightly, revealing a meaningful smile. Intent, whispered. Hearing that, Iruka's head is big at once. Although Chengku is not as savvy as Izumi, and can use various conditions to force him to submit, but no matter what, Chengku can be regarded as a friend who has known for 5 years, which is rare in this world. One of the people who can make him care. Iruka turned his head in a little surprise, and then he saw a woman with a face that could not be overstated by her majestic beauty, with a touching smile on her face, walking towards her with a smile. It turned out to be like a powerful magnet, so that men with or without female companions involuntarily attracted their eyes. However, Chengku didn't eat his set. When she became angry, she completely remembered what she had always kept in her heart. When facing Iruka, she had to pay attention to the idea of maintaining her gentle image. However, as soon as he finished speaking, he immediately reacted. He immediately looked at Chenku, who was a little annoyed in embarrassment, and quickly remedied. What's more, Iruka's gaze was attracted by the law of gravity. Although she broke free very quickly, her mind still inevitably came up with what she had just seen, even if she was dressed relatively conservatively. His dark loose high-necked top is still very conspicuous, and the crescent moon leaves one of the most impressive parts of him. Moreover, Iruka's personality is very different from usual. The rather strong character of Chenku feels an extremely strong sense of sight. The two figures belonging to different worlds overlap in an instant, although they soon separated. But he was still slightly affected, and he couldn't help but care more about Chenku. Chapter 133. When Iruka and Xuanyu intersect again, his students are not as laid back as him. The death forest under the curtain of night is full of danger. Whether it is a beast or a poisonous insect, a little carelessness will bring about the danger of death. This is the venue for the second exam and the place where ninjas with insufficient strength are buried. Of course, the most dangerous thing in the death forest is never itself, but the outsiders who come here for a certain purpose. For example, lightning style, thunder, papa papa. Several blue and white thunders with thick arms fell, accompanied by a noisy and piercing roar, and slammed on the three ninjas wearing rain shinobi forehead protector. The three screamed suddenly, and their eyes gradually widened. The scarred body was ravaged by several strands of thunder and lightning containing terrifying electrical energy, and he lost consciousness almost instantaneously. When the thunder and lightning disappeared completely, the broken bodies of the three people continued to emit black smoke, and then fell to the ground with a few puffs. Not far from the place where the three of them fell, 2 men and 1 woman were 3 ninjas wearing Konoha forehead protectors. The handsome young man who had just used the powerful lightning style slowly lowered his hands that flashed with a few electric arcs. Naruto, go see if they hold the Book of Heaven or the Book of Earth. Naruto curled his lips, and walked towards the place where the corpses were lying uncomfortably. As he walked, he muttered. Hey, the pushy guys can kill them with physical skills, but they want to be handsome. They also said that making a noise can attract those hidden ninja squads, and let them come to the door to get rid of them. An excuse, all excuses. Although with Naruto's loud voice, his complaints from Sasuke and Sakura can be heard clearly, the two of them are obviously used to Naruto's complaints. After all, Sasuke takes the lead in solving the troubles and let the little Sakura be a girl to do the rough work. It's also a bit unreasonable. As a result, the aftermath work is only given to Naruto. So many times of dirty work in a row, Naruto's temperament, it is strange not to complain. When Naruto pulled out the scroll from one of the corpse-lying ninjas and saw the big Earth character written on it, his face was immediately happy, and Technique shouted loudly. Okay, it's the Book of the Earth. Finally got the Book of the Earth, it's true. Why are we so unlucky that we got it after we killed the third team? What should I do with the remaining 2 volumes of the Book of Heaven? Did it just throw it away? Little Sakura Kongan 2 volumes of the Book of Heaven were taken out of the kit, a bit distressed. Sasuke returned to the kunai and shuriken on the ground, and said indifferently, take it, maybe Shikamaru and Shino will need it. Huh, will they not get the corresponding scroll? Impossible. Little Sakura thinks that with their strength far surpassing Genin, it is impossible for them to pass a small survival test. At this moment, Naruto just walked back and laughed immediately after hearing this. Ms. Iruka said that when people are unlucky and drink their saliva, they will be choked to death. Maybe their defeated opponents have the same scrolls as them, haha. Then let Ya and they cry and beg me for alms to them. Think about the way your teeth gritted your teeth. Both Naruto and Ya are very pushy. Naruto and Ya have never dealt with each other in terms of personality. They will confuse a few words from time to time. Therefore, when Naruto wants to fix a person, he will definitely think of Ya first. As for Sasuke, it is completely the relationship of mutual competition and common progress. Although he has never won in many competitions, the gap in strength has never been widened. The reason why Naruto can become an existence second only to Sasuke, except for the help of Iruka besides, it mainly depends on Sasuke's only identification with him all the time. Naruto, you are so vulgar. Little Sakura looked at Naruto like trash, and then continued. Say, Hinata is also in class 8. Do you want her to beg you too? Hearing this, Naruto was stunned for a moment, and then a little frustrated. Forget it, damn it, why is Hinata in the 8th class? If Hinata is so good in the 7th class, she and I are the best. Take. Before Naruto's daily life was finished, the angry girl's fist hit his head heavily. Only a bang was heard. Naruto fell to the ground in response, and then he heard little Sakura's powerful voice. Are you dissatisfied with teaming up with me? Ah. No. Not at all. Facing the amazing little Sakura, Naruto was embarrassed, and then when the victorious girl turned around and wanted to stick to Sasuke as always, she curled her mouth behind her back, and muttered while clutching her swollen forehead. Stand up. Sasuke deserves to look down on him, such a violent guy, he will definitely not be able to marry in the future. Advertisement. The daily life of the 3-person room has not changed at all because of the dangerous death forest. For the 7th class, the strongest of the 3 classes in this class, the content of this level of examination is too simple and difficult. Not to mention that it was compared with the A-level mission that Baihei encountered in the first time in the Country of Waves, and even the training items in the special training ground were much simpler than the content of this exam. Therefore, When others are nervously guarding against the enemies that may appear around them at any time, they are walking in the courtyard. The so-called art masters are bold, and the general genin is really not a threat to them. However, among all genins who took this Chunin exam, 9 of them are not special. Click, click. Suddenly there was a bombardment that seemed to be raged by some impact. The 3 of them would not be unconscious of such a big movement. Naruto and Sasuke looked at each other, and then nodded in a tacit understanding. Then they saw Naruto. Going to the front, facing the direction where the sound was made, the hands quickly formed the seal, chakra was extracted in one breath and gathered in the mouth. With the completion of the seal, the ninjutsu suddenly activated. Wind style, great breakthrough. Naruto spit out a violent wind and swept away in front of him. At the same time, Naruto once again extracted chakra, the consciousness connected to the spiritual realm. Chakra turned into a bridge between reality and the spiritual realm, and the ability to operate in an instant. Secret technique, DC breakthrough. The violent wind that ninjutsu created containing Naruto chakra suddenly became violent under the effect of his ability, and its power was directly increased by several times, causing the surrounding air to violently shake, and the violent wind that was originally intended to blow away the enemy diverged. The direction suddenly became a straight line, rushing straight in the direction of the noise. This was not over yet. Just as the storm shattered the huge tree trunk in front of him and continued to raging forward, the ninjutsu that Sasuke had prepared from when Naruto launched the secret technique was suddenly activated with the completion of the last seal of ninjutsu. The power of the fire wave has been greatly improved under Naruto's wind style. It exploded at the moment the storm hits the enemy's spell. The huge impact actually crushed all the surrounding dense trees, within a radius of 10 meters. The terrain changed abruptly, and the flames skyrocketed and spread quickly to the surroundings. Shadow clone technique. Naruto and Sasuke murmured one after another. Then the 3 exchanged glances. They knew each other's meaning without words. Then Naruto and Sasuke quickly pulled out kunai and looked at the 3 in front of them dignifiedly. At the same time, Sakura suddenly retreated behind the 2 of them. The next moment, she saw her dark green pupils suddenly shrank. Boom 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 boom. With a few bangs, 10 Naruto's shadow clone appeared out of thin air. 4 shadow clones protected the little Sakura in the middle in 4 directions, and the remaining 6 shadow clones quickly moved towards the nearby ones. Kusano rushed away, but Naruto and Sasuke's deities stayed where they were, their eyes focused on Kusano's movements. The battle is on the verge of breaking out. The 7th class of Basic Tactics 3. First use Shadow Clone to test, and then analyze the enemy's basic action mode through the little Sakura's ultra-dynamic vision, and finally Sasuke formulates an action plan based on the analysis results. This is only when encountering an enemy with unknown strength the tactics used. When this tactic is used, it means that they are about to go all out, and they will never retain the slightest amount of hands. Fire style, Haoyan technique. When the young Sakura activated his abilities, Naruto suddenly raised his hand, and a simple technique was formed on both hands. Gia, I wanted to say hello to you, but we didn't expect that it was us who would end up ashamed. You can use such a powerful technique at a young age. You really opened my eyes. Thank you for reading this story at mtlarchive.com. Your support enables us to keep the site running. From the ninja costumes, it is obvious that they are Kushininyo. 2 of them don't see their looks clearly while wearing a hat, but the one standing among them took off the hat, revealing an extremely feminine face, and from his body, through the perception of wind and thunder, the conclusion that can be drawn is. When seeing the 6th shadow clone rushing over, the headed Kushinin suddenly stretched out his long tongue and licked the corner of his mouth, revealing a disdainful smile. Sasuke suddenly spit out a wave of fire, and the fire became stronger instantly under the action of the storm. At the same time, with a strong impact, it rushed towards the ninjutsu that was rushing against the storm created by Naruto using the secret technique. Ultra-dynamic vision. This guy. Fortunately, here is the virgin forest. The humidity of the air and the water contained in the plants are very high. The fire cannot expand and eventually disappears into the air. The place directly impacted becomes an open area, and the true face of the attacker gradually appears. In front of the 3. Very strong. Chapter 134. Bang bang bang. With 6 consecutive soft sounds, Naruto's 6 shadow clones instantly dissipated into the air, and the shot was a man with 6 arms after taking off his hat, and a man with a fat body. In the place where shadow clone disappeared, a few golden kunai remained on the cracked surface. One is a guy who spit out silk from his mouth and turned into a golden kunai, and the other is a power ninja using earth style. Sasuke, Naruto, pay attention to it. Although Naruto's shadow clone only has less than 1/10 of the strength of the body, but it should not be easy for the guy who can solve shadow clone so quickly. With super dynamic vision, the opponent's actions are slow motion in Sakura's eyes. The basic characteristics of the technique were analyzed by Sakura in an instant. Upon hearing her words, Naruto and Sasuke nodded at the same time, and then Sasuke burst out. Thunder body technique, and Naruto once again divided out 6 shadow clone, but this time he did not rush directly over, but stayed in place, his hands were raised, and he maintained a technique that could continuously release chakra. Gia, that little girl has a pair of nice eyes. Jirobo, Gatong Maru, originally wanted to play alone, but now it doesn't seem to work anymore. The strength of those little guys is a bit unexpected. Please help me a little bit. The man standing in the middle spoke in a fairly neutral tone, and when he heard his words, the 2 people on the side nodded at the same time. From the attitude, they were not like peers of equal status, but more like the boss and the boss. The relationship of subordinates, you can see the obvious respectful color in their expressions. So, the man with a feminine face stretched out his long tongue and licked the corner of his mouth. His face was filled with an extremely dangerous smile. The real battle has begun. When the words were over, an astonishing murderous aura suddenly swept towards Naruto, Sasuke and little Sakura not far away. Under the blessing of chakra, the murderous aura turned into a substance and instantly made the three bodies stiff at the same time. At the same time, Gaidomaru and Jirobo quickly rushed to the three of them. In the middle of the road, the six-handed Gatong Maru suddenly jumped high, and his cheeks suddenly bulged. Forbearance, spider restraint technique. Gatong Maru spit out a white spider web-like substance from his mouth. On the other side, Jirobo suddenly pressed his hands on the ground when he approached the three of them. Chakra acted on the ground, and ninjutsu was activated instantly. Earth style, earth and land flip. With the start of ninjutsu, the ground around the three suddenly trembled, and a few cracks appeared on the ground not long after. However, at this moment, Sasuke, who was entangled by electric arcs, suddenly stared, and his hands were within 2 seconds. After finishing the technique seal, he suddenly lifted his foot and stomped on the ground fiercely. Lightning style, Lei Ying. Crackling. The ear-piercing chirping sounded, and the next moment, I saw a few white lights flashing across the cracks on the ground. The chakra of earth style was instantly obliterated by lightning style, and the earth suddenly became calm again. At the same time, Naruto, who was beside him, suddenly touched both hands. Together, a large amount of chakra extracted in one breath gathered in his mouth. Wind style, great breakthrough. The white spider's web was instantly blown away by the wind pressure in a wide range, and even the Gatong Maru in the air was unstable under the influence of the storm, and fell quite embarrassed by Jirobo's side. At the pinnacle of the first round, Sasuke and Naruto won, and seeing their incomparable freedom of movement, Jirobo and Gaidomaru couldn't help but feel a little puzzled. Not only them, but even the man behind them looked a little surprised. Oh, it's not bad to crack my illusion while resisting the killing intent. He used all his illusions to perform illusions. Gatongmaru and Jirobo attacked quickly. This was his initial plan. Of course, he didn't plan to kill Sasuke directly. He just wanted to test how he would crack his illusion, so as to test Sasuke. As a result, he didn't expect that it was not just Sasuke, but even Naruto and Sakura couldn't see how they cracked their illusion. Is it really an illusion, huh? Sasuke's mouth showed a hint of sarcasm, and at the same time, his body leaned forward slightly, and his figure suddenly disappeared with a piercing cry. The next moment, Jirobo suddenly burst out from his side. Strong blue-white arc. It's a pity that no matter what type of illusion, it is ineffective to us. The indifferent voice sounded. Before Jirobo could react, he suddenly felt a pain in his waist, as if he was hit by a heavy hammer. His whole body could not control and flew to the side at a fast speed. After landing, he still slid for several meters, leaving a trail. The deep rut stopped, which shows the strength of attacking him. Advertisement. After kicking Jirobo flying, Sasuke looked coldly at Gaidomaru, who had reacted and quickly withdrew. However, the strange thing was that he didn't have the slightest plan to do anything. He just stood so well and leisurely, as if waiting for something. Just as doubts surfaced in Tongmaru's heart, several bad winds suddenly appeared behind him. Not good. Tongmaru was shocked, trying to stop and change direction, but it was too late. Wind style, the wind is pressing hard. I don't know when. Relying on the reminder of the little Sakura, the three Naruto shadow clones who predicted the direction of Gaidomaru's retreat in advance, punched at the same time, and with the blessing of ability, they slammed on Gaidomaru's back with a clear fist. Bang bang bang. With 3 heavy noises, Gaidomaru screamed, and his body quickly flew towards Sasuke. Upon seeing this, Sasuke's mouth immediately hooked, and then raised his wrist without hesitation, and it happened to be stuck on the neck of the flying Gaidomaru, clamping Gatongmaru's whole person with his wrist strength, and then Sasuke nodded a simple technique seal with one hand, and the ability was quickly activated. Secret technique, Beng Lei. Chi chi chi. The harsh sound sounded far more than before. Sasuke's body was full of thunder, and the terrifying current raged on Gaidomaru, who was stuck in his neck. Under Naruto's heavy fist, Gaidomaru, who had almost lost consciousness, was caught by this violent thunder and lightning. The ravages, his eyes turned white, and black smoke burst out all over his body. When Sasuke let go, he fell straight to the ground without consciousness. But, damn it, Jirobo struggled to stand up. He really did not expect Sasuke to be so fast. He could barely capture a little trajectory, and was attacked before he took defense. If it weren't for his thick skin, he would probably be able to. He completely lost consciousness. As expected to be the little devil that Master Orochimaru is fond of, his strength is really extraordinary, in that case. Jirobo murmured a few words, and then a layer of weird ink lines appeared on the bare skin on his body. Obviously, Sasuke's strength made him realize that if he didn't go all out, he might be completely lost in the next attack. Combat power, had to make up his mind to use his whole cards. When the ink lines stopped extending, the skin on his body suddenly turned red, the orange hair became longer, and at the same time the white part of his eyes turned black. The originally embarrassed body suddenly burst into a powerful and evil chakra. Upon seeing this, Sasuke couldn't help frowning. He could feel that Jirobo had launched a certain secret surgeon's strength. Although he still couldn't threaten him, the technique that could make him stronger still made him a little hesitant. Take action at a time. Of course, what he cared most was the man not far away who hadn't done anything except for the illusion at the beginning. One of their companions has already been killed, and the other Earth-style ninja is planning to fight desperately, but from the strength shown by himself and Naruto, it can be clearly judged that it is absolutely impossible to be an opponent on his side. The situation is already clear. They are actually without the slightest retreat, or even a sense of urgency. Sasuke, who has a keen sense of crisis, couldn't help but feel an unknown premonition in his heart. Jia Jia Jia, as if to confirm Sasuke's premonition, the man suddenly laughed in a surreptitious manner. He looked at Sasuke, who was bathed in a blue and white arc not far away, and his eyes were filled with fear and intent to kill. Extremely strong desire. The endless greed seemed to swallow Sasuke's whole person, strange and powerful. Excellent. What a genius. As expected of the Uchiha clan, he actually possessed this kind of strength at this age. This aptitude even surpassed Uchiha Itachi. I tried my best to come to Konoha and I didn't waste my energy. Sasuke, you really satisfy me. Upon hearing this, Naruto and Sakura only thought he was boasting of Sasuke. Naruto curled his lips and was very upset that Sasuke had taken the limelight again. But Sakura's face showed a sense of pride for his own man. But Sasuke, who noticed a certain name in that sentence, was suddenly taken aback. He couldn't help but temporarily suppressed his original idea of solving Jirobo quickly, and asked the feminine man not far away in a deep voice. Who are you? What does it have to do with that man? Chapter 135. Sorry, because at the end of the semester, there is a lot of school shit. As a graduate, I have a lot of things to be busy with. Therefore, the update speed is very scumbag recently. Of course, no matter what reason is the slow update speed, it is my fault. This brother Guo has memorized it, but I still brazenly hope that all friends who like this book can understand my brother a little bit. After the holiday, the little brother must try his best to code words and guarantee 3 chapters a day. My name is Orochimaru. As if feeling that there is no need to cover it up, Orochimaru raised his hand and tore off the human skin covering his face, revealing a pale with no trace of blood. It is the pale-skinned face that humans should have, especially the pair of cold eyes. Just looking at it can make people feel shuddering. A person who can give you strength and want to help you complete your revenge. Orochimaru licked the corner of his mouth, with a cold smile on his face. In the pair of eyes that were different from ordinary people, only Sasuke's figure bathed in thunder was reflected. The greed inside seemed to make Sasuke whole, swallowed completely. However, after hearing this, especially after seeing Orochimaru's true face, Sasuke was stunned for a while, thought a little, and searched for information about Orochimaru's familiar face in his mind. Not long after, Sasuke suddenly sneered as if he had heard some big joke, and said with disdain. I thought it was. It turned out to be the guy who attacked Mr. Iruka indefinitely 5 years ago. I didn't expect you to escape under the hands of Mr. Iruka. If nothing else, I admire the ability to escape, but you said do you want to help me complete my revenge? Are you planning to give me this kind of particularly powerful ability to escape? As he said, Sasuke curled his lips with contempt. Don't be kidding, I'm a student of teacher Iruka. No matter what time or what happens, I will only recognize one teacher in my life. He has given me my own power and taught me what is real. Powerful, and you actually said that you want to give me strength. That's just a time bomb that you want to put on me for a certain purpose. How could I believe a sinister guy like you? Hearing this, Orochimaru's originally rather playful face suddenly froze, and it suddenly appeared in his mind 5 years ago that he faced a scar-faced young man who had an extremely ordinary amount of chakra both in appearance and inwardness, but it was because of the journey. The scene of boring and spontaneous shots, and the result was almost killed by the incredible power of that young man. Only then did he remember that the young man was with 2 6 or 7-year-old little ghosts at the time. He did not expect that Sasuke was one of those 2 little ghosts, and he was also a student of that young man. No wonder he could have such a strong young man at a young age. Strength, even if it is a genius, this growth rate is really outrageous, and only the young man with the same incredible existence can cultivate the same incredible disciple. Although he was very unwilling, it was like he was defeated by Uchiha Itachi. He had no choice but to be unwilling. Reality is reality. Through the information provided to him by someone in Konoha, Orochimaru knew the young man named Umino Iruka. Human, nominally just an ordinary Chunin teacher, but in fact it is definitely one of Konoha's top combat powers, and the strength far exceeds the existence of Kakashi's surface combat power. If he hadn't had enough whole cards, even if he knew that Konoha still had a container comparable to Uchiha Itachi, he would never risk sneaking into Konoha. Originally, he thought Sasuke was just a 12-year-old kid, and he had a great resentment towards Uchiha Itachi because of the genocide. The Avengers who have a strong desire for revenge in his heart only need to use power as a bait, and he can easily walk in. Own trap. He really didn't expect that Genin, a novice who had just graduated less than 4 months, would have such a quick thinking, and he is not a kid who is easily influenced by the words of adults. Unexpectedly, that guy's influence on Sasuke would be so great, it was beyond the influence of the hatred caused by Uchiha Itachi on him. It seems that he is no longer a pure Avenger. In that case, the plan is to be changed. Did it happen? Just when Orochimaru changed a certain decision because of Sasuke's words, Naruto walked to Sasuke's side and asked with a puzzled look. Sasuke, do you know that guy? Naruto, who doesn't understand or bother to understand human skin disfigurement, is just a little concerned about when Sasuke met a Kushinen. Of course, he was very nervous and didn't notice the forehead protector on Orochimaru's head. He didn't know when it became. A musical note pattern was created. Anyway, you can't remember it anyway, so I don't want to waste my energy to explain it to you. Obviously Naruto was also there at the time, but Sasuke knew Naruto's rough nerves. If he could think of it, he would not be Naruto. After all, Naruto could allow him to recognize it, only his strength, other aspects, not to mention it. Hey, love to say nothing. Naruto curled his lips in dissatisfaction, but it was obviously not the time to say this. He pointed to Jirobo not far away, and said confidently, I'll get rid of that fat guy. Sasuke, you'll get rid of that guy. Let's have a game to see who will get rid of the opponent first. How about the barbecuing party for the loser after the exam? Advertisement. Before the start of the first exam, as the 9 people who had lost contact since becoming genin, decided to hold a barbecue party under Choji's proposal. Even Sasuke, who is basically a single player on weekdays, agreed. Others naturally, people will not be right, but they have said that it is AA system, but now Naruto wants to use a bet to pit Sasuke and let him give him blood. Although the opponent's strength is obviously much stronger than the weaker genin, Naruto seems to be worse than himself. As long as he doesn't underestimate the enemy, it is only a matter of time before they can be resolved. However, Sasuke was not as relaxed as his face. 5 years ago, the entire sky was dyed red by flames. Sasuke is still very clear. Sasuke doesn't think that his strength is now comparable to Iruka at the time. After all, it was Iruka who defeated Orochimaru, not him, but Iruka. A ninja who is serious to that level will never be weaker than that. Therefore, don't look at Sasuke's disdain for Orochimaru just now. In fact, his heart is very nervous. This is a strong man who can make himself feel a strong crisis after by, and he dare not be careless. After Naruto finished speaking, he rushed towards Jirobo, and Sasuke did not hesitate to turn on Sharingan, and at the same time activated the second stage of the Thunder Body technique, feeling the sudden increase in body load and the explosive power of increase. Sasuke's pair of scarlet the pupils are full of firmness. Thank you for reading this story at mtlarchive.com. Your support enables us to keep the site running. When the words fell, a white light that was imperceptible to the naked eye suddenly flashed in the air. The next moment, Sasuke, who appeared behind Orochimaru instantly, hammered his hands and hit Orochimaru's head fiercely. Orochimaru's body was smashed to the ground with great strength, and instantly smashed a large piece of land into a 2-meter diameter crater. There was absolutely no possibility of a normal person alive under this blow, but Sasuke's face did not relax at all. But suddenly exerted force under his feet, his body shape flashed, and less than 2 breaths appeared on the trunk of a tree whose surface was scorched by Hauyan technique at a distance of 10 meters. The next moment, little Sakura suddenly noticed that the soil not far away moved, and immediately pointed to the place and shouted without hesitation. No matter how powerful the Earth-style ninjutsu is, it is absolutely impossible not to make a slight noise. As long as there is movement, every picture under ultra-dynamic vision will definitely be different. Through these abnormalities, she can judge the enemy. Action. Sasuke had just retreated. Several cracks suddenly appeared in the place where he was standing. Then 3 big snakes with a body width of 1 meter surrounded the ground. After finding that they had lost their target, the 3 big snakes paused for a while, and then quickly Sasuke on the tree trunk that he sensed, suddenly spit out a letter and rushed towards Sasuke. As soon as the voice fell, a kumo surrounded by a violently surging blue-white arc suddenly cut through the air, and suddenly appeared at the place pointed by little Sakura in less than a breathing time. The powerful impact instantly penetrated the surface and stayed on the ground. After the next pothole, he stabbed into the bottom fiercely. However, they are facing Orochimaru, who can survive Iruka's full strength. It seems too early to be relieved now. Sasuke, that guy is hiding there. She saw the scene where Sasuke hit Orochimaru's head just now. She could see clearly that Orochimaru's body, who was hit in her sight, turned into a pile of debris when it fell on the ground, and he himself took advantage of this momentum. Dive quickly underground, so she has been watching the surface conditions closely. There was a muffled noise from the underground, and the surface gradually calmed down in the scene that was 10 times slower in Sakura's sight. Even the 3 big snakes that had rushed towards Sasuke disappeared into the air with a burst of white mist. It looked like. Little Sakura murmured and breathed a sigh of relief. The dark green pupils returned to their original form a little bit. Although chakra is not consumed much to maintain ultra-dynamic vision, it is very energy-intensive. Long-term use will make the eyes very tired, so little Sakura seeing that Orochimaru seemed to be killed, his spirit was slightly relaxed. I know that you are very strong, definitely not comparable to those 2 wastes, but no matter how strong you are, I will use this power to prove Iruka's philosophy to defeat. Naruto, who knocked the apparently non-human Jirobo into the air with a punch, exclaimed. Although the little Sakura with super dynamic vision was surprised by the sudden big snake, she paid more attention to Orochimaru's movements. Bang. Boom. It's so big. This is the first time I have seen such a big snake. Did you kill it? Chapter 136 Orochimaru. After sending the Calamus back to the Yeel Ramen restaurant, Iruka and Xuanyu left side by side under Chenku's inexplicably worried gaze. Then, it's almost time to tell me what's going on. The apartment where Iruka is located is far away from this street. It takes at least an hour for ordinary people to walk back on foot. Of course, this distance is not a big deal for ninjas, but except for Naruto who is idle, it's okay to jump on the roof all day. Few ninjas besides jumping idiots use ninja skills in a swagger in the village, and Iruka is no exception. A whole hour is enough for conversation. Tell you what, my measurements. Zanyu obviously did not intend to take Iruka's topic. His delicate face was filled with a smile that Iruka could not understand at all. For some reason, Zanyu's unique way of speaking made Iruka suddenly have a faint sense of sight. Iruka shook his head, and shook off his thoughts of intention to go astray. A ghost wants to know that kind of thing. What I want to ask is what you said just now is going to live in my house for the time being. Anyway, you are also a powerful person who has traveled in the ninja realm alone for 5 years. There is no place to live, right? Iruka is not interested in why Crescent Moon leaves the village for so long. Anyway, he must be running around for the Uchiha genocide. As for the specific content, he doesn't bother to care about it. Anyway, he is not a member of the Uchiha clan. He is positioned as an ordinary ninja teacher. Therefore, the future of the village, the survival of the ninja world, or the tomorrow of the world has nothing to do with him. The path he has traveled in the past life is absolutely not in this life. Will go again. Because of this, he wouldn't care about many things even if he noticed it. For example, the strangeness of the Uchiha clan's genocide, why Quan Mi had to leave the village to perform long-term tasks when the Chunin selection examination needed to strengthen the village guard, why did Zanyu return to the village at the time when Quan Mi left, etc. Questions that require deep thought. He will pay attention only when there are daily problems that can directly affect his calmness. For example, now, compared to the problem that the timing of the crescent moon is too weird, Iruka cares more about why the third-generation old man troubles him. Stuck in your own home. I'm tired of staying in a hotel. Even if I am, I occasionally want to experience the feeling of home a little bit. Isn't life without the warmth of a family super sad? Please stop the idea of treating my home as your second home. There is already a troublesome guy in the family because of your relationship. My private life thanks to this has been seriously affected. If there is another more trouble, did you let me live? And if you really want to experience the warmth of family, how about finding a man to marry? I have a hairy family warmth in the house of a single man. Single. Zanyu looked at Iruka with contempt. What kind of single man is the guy who has been living with the young girl? The young girl is talking about Izumi. Please, that little girl is 4 years behind me. How can I be considered a young girl? Anyway, I am also a glorious ninja teacher, the object of countless students' admiration. Morality. How can a typical representative of ethics be interested in a little girl? Hearing this, Zanyu not only did not withdraw his contempt, but the serious contempt became more serious. She pointed to the big bag Iruka had been carrying. Then please explain to the teacher Iruka, these filthy what are you going to use the books for? Through the translucent plastic bag, the top book clearly reads the words, Intimate Paradise. The picture on the cover shows that it is not serious reading. Seeing that Xuanyu noticed the contents of the bag, Iruka's eyes twitched. He had known that he would find an opaque paper bag to put it in. Now even with his face, he couldn't help but feel a little embarrassed when he was pointed out by Xuanyu. These are all bought for my friends. That guy is rather boring and dare not to buy it openly. I have to ask me for help, who is owed to others. Forget it, don't talk about this. In short, what I want to say is that I am completely versed in Izumi. I don't have any thoughts on that. If you don't believe me, you can wait for Kwanmi to come back and ask her yourself. I have been taking care of her as a younger sister for the past 5 years, and I have completed your entrustment. Having said this, Iruka didn't know what he thought of, and was stunned. After hearing what he said, the crescent moon on the side seemed to understand something. He didn't care about Iruka's rotten and scumbag technique of changing the subject, but talked to himself. Whispered. So, it's no wonder Kwanmi uses that kind of half-hearted attitude. It turns out that the problem lies with this guy. After a while, a strange color appeared on Iruka's face, and then she suddenly realized as if she had suddenly remembered something that shouldn't have been ignored. Advertisement. Damn, why did I forget such an important thing? Xuanyu, since you're back, you should pick up that girl Kwanmei. Although I don't mind, she is a young girl no matter what, it's not a good thing to live with a single man all the time. It used to be okay. After all, she used to be young, but now she is 18 years old. If she lives with me again, those false rumors must be. Before she finished speaking, Zanyu interrupted suddenly. If this is the case, don't you just turn the rumors into established facts? As long as you and Izumi become lovers, the rumors will no longer be rumors. There is nothing to worry about. Hearing that, Iruka couldn't help but flip through Byakugan. What stupid thing are you talking about? I have said that I have no interest in little girls, how could I develop that kind of relationship with Izumi? If you are still the same. Iruka's unintentional sentence caused Zanyu to be stunned. Of course it is not the kind of unreliable judgment. Zanyu smiled slightly, raised his hand and gently stroked the hair hanging down her ears, and whispered softly, because I used to have that kind of personality, that is to say, she imitated the object as me. The next moment she noticed that Iruka's expression remained unchanged after the last sentence, which means that when his words were completely unintentional, she suddenly shook her head, and then said jokingly, so you like me? Sorry, I can't accept you, who likes to peek at the bottom of other people's skirts, talk about women, and even break into the women's baths. I just said it bluntly. Azumi's current personality and speaking style are definitely not the change after undergoing an accident, but the result of her deliberately imitating someone. After all, after such a big change, it's normal to change your personality, right? The corner of Xuanyu's mouth twitched slightly, and a meaningful smile appeared on her beautiful face. Quan Mei was a lively girl before, the kind of polite and likable who would take the initiative to say hello whenever she met someone she knew. But I heard that now she is a cold girl who sees everyone except the few recognized people, and it is absolutely impossible to quarrel with you in the way she used to talk. Just don't you think her way of speaking is a bit familiar? Iruka frowned, and then said helplessly. As they spoke, the two had already crossed two streets, and pedestrians gradually became scarce. So on what basis do you think Izumi likes me? I don't know how, this kind of relationship is true, but I also know that it is a very sweet feeling. That guy quarreled all day long, and couldn't see the pink stuff at all. It's fine for Hong and Kakashi to misunderstand them. How could you even misunderstand that guy best? I really just have a simple roommate relationship with that guy. What? There must be a limit to excess self-awareness. And since you think I'm such a bad guy, do you want to push Quan Mei to me for Mao? How do you know that she is imitating someone else? Is it another shit woman's instinct? Hearing what Xuanyu said, Iruka suddenly realized the faint sense of sight that had just appeared in his mind, but he still didn't think much about it, and naturally said. Iruka frowned. Seeing Zan Yu's expression of, there is only one truth, he suddenly said with a bit of discomfort. Under the dim light, the beautiful profile of Crescent Moon became a little hazy, and the grace that blended into the night made her a little sad. When Iruka, who matched her pace, turned her head, she suddenly saw her. Some unspeakable complexity flashed by. Zan Yu shook his head, denying Iruka's judgment. That kind of feeling is not only one form of expression, arguing all day does not mean that the relationship between each other is very good. Do you see who she quarrels with other than you? It's just a girl trying to attract a certain fool. It's nothing more than the way patients with melon disease pay attention, and it's great to be able to find someone you like, and to take action for the beauty in your heart. Izumi is so happy that people are enviable. No way. Who made Izumi like you, huh? As he said, Zan Yu suddenly chuckled for some reason. I don't know if it was an illusion. Iruka felt that Zan Yu's laughter seemed to hide a faint bitterness. Chapter 137. Little Sakura, be careful. Little Sakura suddenly heard Sasuke's eager shouts, and was shocked. Then she heard Naruto shadow clone shouts from all four directions. Wind style, wind wall. Accompanied by the whistling sound of the violent wind, the airflow from the bottom up suddenly did not know what the several long snakes rushed into the sky, and the little Sakura who reacted hurriedly broke out under her feet. There was a sudden blast from the side, accompanied by a blue and white arc. Sasuke quickly appeared in front of her, holding a kunai surrounded by thunder in his hand, and turned his back to her to be wary of abnormal movements not far away. Bang bang bang. The four shadow clones disappeared into the air as a cloud of white smoke after they used up the chakra that used the wind wall, and then saw Orochimaru's body slowly pouring up from the soil. Don't be careless, little Sakura, he is a guy who can survive in the hands of Mr. Iruka. It is absolutely impossible to be killed so easily. Don't let it go. Yes, Sasuke, I'm very sorry, I will definitely not let that guy have a chance to attack again. Sasuke nodded, and then released the second stage of the Thunder Body technique. Orochimaru still used the body replacement technique to run away at his limit speed just now, proving that even he could not kill Orochimaru with a full blow, while maintaining the second stage of the Thunder Body technique. The cost is too great. Since the opponent can't be solved in a short time, it is meaningless to maintain the second stage of the Thunder Body technique. It is better to use the normal state to attack him and find the flaws in the battle. Orochimaru habitually licked the corners of his mouth with a tongue different from ordinary people, then raised his hand, and quickly formed a few surgical marks after biting his thumb, and then suddenly pressed the hand that bit the finger to the ground. Summoning technique. Bang. Accompanied by a huge smoke, a huge snake with an extremely large body and a body width of nearly 5 meters suddenly appeared in front of the two Sasuke and Sakura, and then used its huge body to suddenly press down on the two of them. Unable to be surprised, Sasuke directly hugged Sakura's waist and feet, and immediately the two jumped behind them at the same time, and landed directly on the wide tree trunk, while their original position was directly pressed out of a big pit by the giant snake. Orochimaru stood on top of the giant snake, with a cold smile on his face. Originally, I wanted to delay for a while and wait for you to cultivate that body to be stronger before taking you away, but now it seems that the time is ripe, and you seem to have a thorough understanding of power, and now there is no chance if you don't do it. What? Upon hearing this, Sasuke snorted suddenly. Although I don't know what you are planning, even if you do it now, there is absolutely no chance. When the words fell, there was a muffled noise not far away, and the angle of view shifted slightly. Suddenly, I saw more than a dozen Naruto standing in the clearing, and in the middle of them, Jirobo, who had been beaten into an inhuman form, was lying with his eyes turned white. On the ground, he has obviously lost consciousness. Call. Naruto exhaled a bad breath, wiped the cold sweat on his face, and then turned his face a little dignified as the shadow clone technique was lifted, and looked at the giant snake in front of him, especially Orochimaru standing on top of the giant snake. At this time, if you think Orochimaru is the same character as Jirobo and Gaidamaru, then he is not a madman, but a complete idiot. It is important to know that in time-space ninjutsu such as summoning technique, the amount of material or summoning beast that can be summoned is directly related to the amount of chakra injected by the practitioner. Can't summon large substances or creatures, and a person who can summon such a huge snake is definitely not a good guy. Apart from other things, the amount of chakra cannot be underestimated. Naruto. Hearing Sasuke yelling to himself, Naruto nodded, and then separated 10 shadow clone again. 4 rushed towards the position of little Sakura, and 6 remained in the distance, making seals at the same time as the deities Naruto. Little Sakura, Naruto and I will go up to deal with that guy. Here you can take a good look at that guy's mode of action and protect yourself at the same time. Well, Sasuke, you guys be careful. Advertisement. The enemy's strength is unknown, the nature of the ninjutsu used is unknown, and the mode of action is unknown. Compared to the 3 attacking together with Sasuke and Naruto, staying in place gives full play to the ability of this pair of eyes that can clearly observe the opponent's actions. Valuable. Sasuke, who matched the speed of Naruto's not printing, responded. The next moment, he suddenly jumped up high. At the same time, Naruto's shadow clone not printing was completed, and then all shadow clones' mouths suddenly bulged, and ninjutsu was activated instantly. Wind style, great breakthrough. Standing at the end, Naruto's eyes condensed, chakra turned into a bridge between the spiritual realm and reality. When the last seal was completed, ninjutsu and superpowers were activated at the same time. Wind style, spiral burst. The storm generated by great breakthrough was suddenly twisted, and then turned into a high-speed rotating air current, accompanied by a terrifying whistling sound. The spiral-shaped storm rushed toward the huge body of the giant snake. The moment the storm hit the giant snake, it actually rolled the entire body of the giant snake directly, and the strong wind slowly rolled it into the air. At this moment, Sasuke, who just jumped right above the giant snake, also finished. The last seal. Fire style, Haoyan technique. The top-down high-temperature flame suddenly became extremely violent when it touched the storm, and then the original storm quickly turned into a blazing storm, and the entire body of the giant snake in it was constantly emitting under the burning of countless flames. The stern and miserable howl soon turned into a cloud of white smoke and disappeared into the air. Click. The flame storm quickly dissipated. Sasuke fell to the ground very easily, and then quickly pulled out the kunai, and then suddenly there were countless blue and white arcs on the kunai's sharp surface, making the kunai, who was already exuding black cold light, even more it is sharp, and if you fight with the General Kuwu, it can definitely leave a gap on its surface in an instant. After the light of thunder covered the kunai, Sasuke swiftly stabs towards a place where there seems to be nothing. The next moment, only a ding is heard, and Orochimaru's figure holding a sharp sword gradually appears. Coming out, the sparks produced by the collision between kunai and the long sword gradually disappeared in the air. Sasuke, who was unable to strike, quickly dodges Orochimaru's knee hit, pulled out 3 shurikens quickly after a distance, and injected lightning into his power. Threw it sideways at Orochimaru. Ding ding. The 2 shurikens were blocked by the long sword in Orochimaru's hand, but the last shuriken flew towards Orochimaru's neck at a tricky angle, and was about to pierce his neck, but at this moment Orochimaru did. Suddenly opened his mouth, and the next moment a long snake flew out of his mouth. Sheku bit the shuriken and fell to the ground while his body was scorched. Upon seeing this, Sasuke couldn't help but frown. It was the first time he saw someone could jump out of his mouth. It didn't seem to be a technique possessed by humans at all. Gia, it's so dangerous. I didn't expect that simply throwing a shuriken would have such a strange way of attack. The speed at which the last shuriken burst out was really unprepared. If it were ordinary people, it would have been too early. I was killed, hee. What a jealous aptitude, I want to get your powerful body more and more. Orochimaru's gray face was full of greed looking at Sasuke. The stronger Sasuke showed, the more he yearned for Sasuke's body, and when he heard his words, Sasuke understood his meaning after a little thought. It turns out that, as a rebel, you risked sneaking into Konoha because of my blood, the absolute power of the Uchiha clan. Sasuke sneered, and the next moment, there were several orange figures behind Orochimaru. Except the move, the wind is pressing hard. The 3 Naruto's shadow clone fists showed obvious air shaking, and they slammed down Orochimaru's back. However, as they approached Orochimaru, dozens of black snakes flew out of Orochimaru's body suddenly, instantly smashing Naruto's shadow clone. Entangled. Wow. The 3 shadow clone were wrapped around their necks, and they were directly strangled into a cloud of white mist. Then the remaining long snake suddenly opened its mouth when approaching Naruto behind the shadow clone. The next moment, only a long sword was seen from a long sword appeared in the mouths of dozens of snakes at the same time, suddenly turning into a cold white light. Wind style, wind wall. The 3 shadow clone quickly launched ninjutsu, and the bottom-up airflow rushed the snake to the sky again, but the 3 shadow clone blocking the Naruto deity also disappeared into the air as chakra was consumed. Chapter 138 Flame Storm. Ding. One hand held a sword to block Sasuke's Leikuwu, the other hand held Naruto's heavy fist, and at the same time lifted his foot to easily block the sweep of the 2 people. Orochimaru's limbs suddenly forced. Naruto and Sasuke suddenly felt a huge force. Their bodies uncontrollably stepped back, leaving a crease of 6 or 7 meters long on the ground before it could stop. Damn it, this guy is so strong. Feeling the tremendous force in Orochimaru's movements just now, Naruto shook his hand and restored his trembling palm. Sasuke beside him was not much better. His physique was agile, and he was good at transforming speed into strength. His power is not strong, and the result of forcibly confronting Orochimaru's physical skills is that he almost can't even hold the pain, and trembles like Naruto. But this is just a tentative attack for the first time, even if it loses, it doesn't mean much. It's almost time to do it. Estimating the time when the three bodies of Kushinen who had his face taken away from him were found in his heart, Orochimaru twisted his neck slightly to completely relieve Chakra, who had suppressed his physical fitness in order to test Sasuke's strength. The next moment, his aura suddenly climbing, the powerful Chakra was unconsciously released, and the surrounding debris was slowly suspended. This is an effect that only Chakra, who has surpassed the elite Jonin and reached the power of shadow, can create. At this moment, Orochimaru finally plans to get serious, using his power that can destroy a small country alone. Feeling the sudden change in Orochimaru's aura, Sasuke frowned, but Naruto was not as sharp as Sasuke felt. He suddenly nodded and separated 4 avatars, and then took 4 shadows without saying hello. Clone rushed towards Orochimaru. Idiot, wait, Sasuke reacted and wanted to stop it from being too late. Orochimaru looked at Naruto who was rushing towards him, and a joking appeared on his face, then gently raised his hands. When Naruto immediately rushed forward, several pieces appeared from his sleeve. The long snake with thick thighs. Ninfa, Shulker snake hand. The staggered snakes are very fast, and they entangled Shadow Clone in less than a breath. The next moment, the Shadow Clone disappeared completely with a burst of white smoke, but the snake opened its big mouth directly after killing the Shadow Clone. Baring his fangs, he rushed towards Naruto quickly. Naruto obviously hasn't adapted to Orochimaru's abruptly quicker movements. He watched as the cold fangs from the snake's mouth rushed towards his face. Although his body had already reacted, it was impossible to avoid it with his current reaction speed. Sheku. Seeing that several Sheku were about to come into close contact with Naruto, there was a sudden thunder on Naruto's side, and then Naruto heard Sasuke's familiar soft cry. Lightning style, thunder slash. Sasuke's entire wrist exuded a strong white light, his 5 fingers formed into a knife, and he slashed towards the snake's body. Suddenly all the snakes separated from their heads and tails, and the snake's head fell weakly to the ground. Then Sasuke didn't take advantage of the victory, but suddenly turned around, grabbed Naruto's collar and quickly backed away, and stopped after pulling a long distance, and at the same time, he lifted the second stage Thunderbody technique which was very expensive. Sasuke's face was a little tired, and his breathing became a little heavy. Using the second stage of the thunder technique in a hurry obviously caused him a considerable backlash, but there was nothing he could do. He couldn't just watch Naruto be killed. Thanks, Sasuke, are you okay? Sasuke slowed down, and then snorted, rather dissatisfied. You idiot, haven't you noticed that the guy's aura is completely different from just now? The ninja should keep calm at all times and carefully observe all the actions of the enemy. How can you keep rushing forward without thinking? Naruto turned his head with a guilty conscience. Without Sasuke, he would never have escaped Orochimaru's attack. Although he has a strong personality, he is not a person who doesn't know good or bad. Listen well, Naruto, judging from the guy's actions just now, his real strength is absolutely very strong. One person can't be his opponent. Even if 2 people play together, he may not be able to beat him. We have to do the thing is to delay as much as possible, so that the little Sakura hiding in the dark can collect as much information as possible from that guy, and find out the weaknesses, so that he may be defeated. A person is self-knowledge. Iruka also emphasized that at no time should he make wrong judgments about the enemy's strength. Sasuke knows that with his current strength, even with Naruto, he basically wants to win without knowing the opponent's weakness. Impossible, Orochimaru's strength is obviously much stronger than imagined, and it is too irrational to face him head-on. Advertisement. Sasuke breathed a sigh of relief and eased from the super high load of the second stage of the thunder body technique, and then continued, even if the worst happens, little Sakura can't find that guy's weakness. With our actions just now, Shikamaru Shino and the others are sure I noticed that Shikamaru and Shino's analytical abilities are very strong. They must know that we will only use combined ninjutsu when we encounter a powerful enemy. Now they are likely to be rushing here. As long as they persist until they arrive, we will with the 9 people working together. This guy is absolutely impossible to be our opponent. Naruto nodded. Don't think he is always upset about Sasuke's prominence, but he will not resist Sasuke's proposal when he is on a mission, because he also knows that he is not good at analysis now. Even if he is strong, he must be divided. Circumstances, blindly acting aggressively is just harming others and self. If it's physique, maybe I will have to spend some time, but since you have given up your only advantage, then it is not the battle between ninjas that usually ends by finding the other party's flaws. Hearing this extremely cold voice, Sasuke and Naruto stared at the same time. Because Sasuke had not recovered the relationship, Naruto took the initiative to separate 4 shadow clones at the same time, and then put their hands together. Chakra was instantly refined in the body. He kept circulating in his meridians, ready to launch ninjutsu or abilities at any time, but he didn't mean to rush over. He just looked at Orochimaru vigilantly, apparently listening to Sasuke's words. Jia, pure ninjutsu competition is my favorite way of fighting. After the words fell, Orochimaru suddenly lowered his body, pressed his chest directly to the ground, and then suddenly opened his mouth. Just as Naruto and Sasuke were puzzled, the next moment, they saw dozens of black snakes suddenly crawling out of Orochimaru's mouth. The 2 were shocked. Boom boom boom. Secret technique, wind gust wall. Sasuke promptly issued a command, and then he quickly formed the seal with both hands, and at the same time, he fully extracted chakra. The next moment, he saw a clear blue light on the surface of his skin, and he could directly see the amount of chakra with the naked eye. Obviously Sasuke was next. The technique to be activated was not his simple moves that only needed a thought to activate. However, this is just the beginning. The number of snakes that crawled out of Orochimaru's mouth quickly changed from dozens to hundreds at the beginning, and then seemed to be endless, and finally even to the point of countless, densely packed. The countless black snakes gradually turned into a huge black torrent, rushing towards Sasuke and Naruto extremely fast. No matter how terrifying the number of snake waves, it is absolutely impossible to break through this endless strangling wind wall. Forbearance, the array of 10,000 snakes. Damn it, that guy's range of skills is too big to hide, even a combination of ninjutsu can't cancel each other out, there's no way. Naruto, use that trick. A roar suddenly sounded in the sky, followed by dozens of bolts of thick blue and white thunder and lightning, and instantly smashed holes in the black snake waves tens of meters wide, but the violent thunder and lightning were only it can stop the speed of the snake wave for a while, as if the endless snake wave is still crawling in the thunder light, and it is about to swallow the two small existences in front of it. These debris were thrown away by the powerful centrifugal force generated by the wind blade strangling that constantly surging upwards, and in the wind blade strangling like a meat grinder, not a single bit fell into the wind gust wall. At this time, thank you for reading this story at mtlarchive.com. Your support enables us to keep the site running. This is why Sasuke has to be convinced that only Naruto, who has a huge amount of chakra, can use it among the 9 people. It is rare to use continuous attacks to defensive ninjutsu. Because of this, he was able to use the strongest and most rude technique among the 9 men's techniques. Naruto didn't ask what the so-called, that trick, was. With the tacit understanding between him and Sasuke, he didn't need to ask the nonsense, but he suddenly burst into an extremely strong blue light, which turned into a blue light curtain. Compared to Sasuke's faint blue light, it is obviously several times stronger, and only Naruto, a monster called chakra, can release such a huge chakra at will, and he can despise everyone including Iruka, and only chakra measured. This is the A-level ninjutsu used by Orochimaru and Iruka 5 years ago. With Iruka's powerful ability to use C-level ninjutsu with the power of A-level ninjutsu, this trick can naturally be easily resolved, but Sasuke and Naruto but without Iruka's ability to use a wide range of A-level ninjutsu with gestures, how could they be calm in the face of the snake waves that make their scalp numb just by looking at them? When Naruto was frantically refining chakra, Sasuke finally gathered chakra who had launched ninjutsu. Accompanied by Naruto's loud shout, the secret technique that had been prepared for a long time was finally activated. The next moment, the air around Naruto and Sasuke suddenly swayed, and then suddenly there was a sharp and piercing whistling sound, which was lower than that of the wind wall. With the steady airflow above, the wind created by the wind gust wall is an extremely violent wind blade. The wind curtain composed of countless small wind blades staggered back and forth, instantly turned the black snake that touched the surface into debris. Lightning style, Great Thunder Technique. Chapter 139 Ninjutsu Confrontation. When the horrible black snake wave disappeared completely through the blurred vision of the wind wall, Naruto looked tired and relieved the ninjutsu. On the side of Sasuke's face, the pair of Sharingan flashing red in the dark quickly scanned the situation nearby. Although Sharingan's insight is a bit worse than that of Sakura's ultra-dynamic vision, it is still far better than ordinary people, but it can't see everything in the line of sight in a short time like Sakura, it takes a little longer than her. Sasuke, where did that guy go? Naruto put Shadow Clone in front, stepped back a little bit, walked to the side of Sasuke, and asked in confusion, isn't that guy saying he wants to compete with us with ninjutsu? Why, he disappeared with only one move. Does he think he can't beat us and run away? After carefully observing the surrounding situation with Sharingan and making sure that no matter which direction Orochimaru attacked from, Sasuke curled his lips in dissatisfaction. That guy's strength is definitely stronger than no-cut and white, and our chances of winning are lower than imagined. How can he escape in this situation? And the enemy's words must not be easily believed. The essence of a ninja is deceit. Whether it is language, it's still a technique, and the purpose is to overcome its unpreparedness and win in one fell swoop. Who can deceive the opponent's eyes, the eyes? Speaking of this, Sasuke was stunned, and then his face suddenly became extremely ugly, and his face was eagerly said, no. That guy's real goal is little Sakura. As if to confirm Sasuke's judgment, a familiar exclamation suddenly sounded in the jungle behind the two. What? Damn it! Sasuke had lost his square inch, and once again, regardless of the load on his body, he unpreparedly activated the second stage of the Thunder Body technique. The next moment his whole body instantly turned into a white light and rushed towards the direction of the little Sakura's cry. Naruto's reaction was a bit slow, but without any hesitation, he tried his best to refine chakra and accelerate himself with the wind. Although he couldn't reach the speed that Sasuke was almost invisible to the naked eye, it was much better than ordinary ninjas. When Naruto rushed to the hiding place of little Sakura and saw the sight in front of him, his light blue pupils suddenly shrank like Sasuke's scarlet Sharingan, and his face suddenly became extremely stiff. It's really fast, you really deserve to be Uchiha Itachi's younger brother. The ability to perceive people's hearts is really the same, but it's still a little late. Looking at Sasuke and Naruto, who were shaking slightly not far away, Orochimaru's mouth raised slightly, revealing a cruel smile, and in front of him was a little Sakura dressed in a cheongsam and tight shorts. However, the little Sakura reflected in the pupils of Naruto and Sasuke at this time is completely devoid of the old or gentle or idiot and savage image. The delicate little face is pale as paper, and the corners of the mouth are constantly flowing red blood, except for the little Sakura. Outside the figure, there was an extremely conspicuous cold light in the images of the two pupils. It was a long sword with endless chills. The blood-stained tip of the sword pointed directly at the sky, and the bottom of the sword was the rather thin waist of the little Sakura. Ninjas have systematically studied the vital parts of the human body, and Sasuke has a deep understanding of this. At a glance, he judged that the part where the little Sakura was penetrated is one of the several vital parts of the human body. As long as he is seriously injured, he will definitely die. In other words, little Sakura. Realizing an unchangeable reality, Sasuke's mind instantly became blank, and Naruto on the side was just like him. Although the shaking of his body stopped, even if he realized the cruel reality, he didn't know what to do in a short time. Face it. Sasuke. Little Sakura clicked the corners of her mouth a few times and was about to say something. However, before she could finish her words, Orochimaru suddenly chucked her long sword. The pain caused little Sakura's face to become a little distorted, accompanied by her waist. With bloody arrows gushing out, little Sakura's body fell weakly to the ground. It's a taboo to look away from the enemy during the battle. This little girl has good eyes. If I were not too worried about your safety, Sasuke, I wouldn't be able to get it easily. Orochimaru raised his hand and wiped the blood splashed on his face. All he wanted was Sasuke. Naruto and Sakura didn't really matter to him. Although they showed good aptitudes, in his eyes Sasuke's powerful Uchiha bloodline is even more attractive. The most important thing now is to quickly take Sasuke away. There is no need to care about other things. Unforgivable. Naruto lowered his head and made an extremely heavy sound. Then, a layer of red chakra visible to the naked eye suddenly appeared on his body, which quickly covered him like a coat. At the back, a fiery red tail was wagging back and forth. There was a gust of wind directly. When the red chakra was completely stabilized, Naruto suddenly raised his head, and the original light blue pupils suddenly turned into a pair of blood-red beast eyes, looking directly at Orochimaru not far away with incomparable killing intent. Huh, this evil chakra, is this kid? A touch of surprise appeared on Orochimaru's face, and then he suddenly felt a strong air pressure, instinctively raised his hand to block his cheek. The next moment, the fist wrapped in the red chakra coat appeared in front of him instantly. Dare to kill my companion, go to hell. Boom. Advertisement. Orochimaru's body flew backwards like a cannonball, and he smashed two huge tree trunks to stop. Naruto, who had obviously lost his mind, yelled, and then his body fell on all fours like a small red fox. Several cyclones quickly appeared on Chakra's coat, and then the entire red figure suddenly rushed towards Orochimaru with force under its feet, turning into a red light. Boom 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 boom. A series of roars sounded, countless huge trees broke at the sound, and from time to time a few dazzling lights appeared, illuminating the surrounding sand and gravel that was continuously rolled into the air. The space where Naruto and Orochimaru were located was instantly covered by the sky of dust, and all the surrounding matter followed. Naruto's rage gradually turned into debris, and the endless killing intent even made the entire death forest completely restless. Sasuke seemed unaware of the movement not far away. Under the handsome face covered by the narrow bangs, a pair of scarlet Sharingan was gradually undergoing a certain change. The perfectly opposed pair of Guyu gradually deviated from the original track, and a brand new black Guyu suddenly appeared in the blank position. The three Tomo were rapidly rotating at 120 degrees. After a while, the track of the Guyu gradually became smaller, and finally it turned out to be slowly converging towards the middle, and as Guyu changed, Sasuke's eyes suddenly seeped to blood and tears, stern and hideous. Tears of blood flowed down Sasuke's cheeks, seeing all the Guyu fused together completely, and at this crucial moment. Click. Sasuke suddenly felt a tap on his shoulder, and the next moment, he heard a familiar voice. Sasuke, are you okay? Three Tomo returned to his original position in an instant, and Sasuke finally recovered, and suddenly saw Shikamaru with a soaring hedgehog ponytail looking at him with some worry. Shikamaru and their 10th class finally arrived, but they came too late. Little Sakura, what's the matter with you? Don't scare me. When Ino arrived, the first thing Ino noticed was not the Sasuke she had always liked, but the little Sakura who fell in a pool of blood. She quickly squatted down and put little Sakura on her knees, and then removed the ninja. He took out a roll of bandage from the bag and hurriedly helped the little Sakura bandage it up. This almost instinctive reaction fully reflected the true friendship between her and little Sakura. Although she usually fights because she likes Sasuke at the same time, the friendship is not reduced by half because of this fight. Only in this way will she show her truest side. The wound on Sakura's waist was finally bandaged. The white bandage was stained red with blood, but at any rate no blood oozes out. However, this does not seem to make any sense. Anyone who has studied the knowledge of ninja knows that this kind of vitality is pierced. Even a ninja's wound can only last for 4 minutes at most. Ino, it's useless, the key to little Sakura. Shut up, fat pig. Ino shouted angrily, still doing seemingly meaningless emergency treatment, as if he had lost his mind, and even if he was called Choji, who is usually the nickname for forbidden sentences, there was not the slightest anger on his face. But the sorrow of the companion being killed. Shikamaru didn't ask what happened. Obviously it's not the time to ask. The huge noise not far away seemed to remind everyone that the guy who killed the little Sakura was not far away. Shikamaru winked with Choji and nodded tacitly, and then the two suddenly pressed their feet, and the figures quickly rushed in the direction of the noise. Under the perception of three Tomo Sharingan and the tremendous increase in the spiritual realm that exhibited the nature of thunder, Sasuke could feel the aura of little Sakura gradually disappearing. He did not turn his grief into strength for the death of his companions with Shikamaru and Choji, and rushed past to kill him. Killing the enemy of little Sakura only because what Iruka had said to him in Naruto before leaving the country of waves suddenly appeared in his mind. Why do we need to guard? That's it, Mr. Iruka, I finally understand why you should ask such a natural question. Sasuke murmured, raised his head, and looked at the endless darkness of the night sky. His heart calmed down like never before, so calm that he completely forgot that he was Uchiha Sasuke, forgot where he was, and forgot everything, almost blank. There is only deep thought in my mind about a certain conclusion drawn in my mind. Yep, having accepted the reality of living with something more troublesome than Izumi for the next period of time, Iruka, who was about to return to the apartment, seems to have suddenly noticed something. The crescent moon's face flashed with a solemn look, and then he was a little confused. Asked. What's wrong? Iruka waved his hand, and then closed his eyes. Not long after, of course, when he opened his eyes, his face suddenly became heavy. This spiritual wave, Little Sakura, Chapter 140. Quan Yu, you go back first, my student is in danger, I must rush over. With that said, Iruka quickly extracted chakra, and then released it in one breath. Refraction technique. The air around Iruka shook abruptly, and the next moment as Iruka's ability was activated, a thin layer of refraction appeared out of nowhere, so that Iruka was the only one seen from the outside. Hidden his body in the refraction layer, Iruka's eyes suddenly condensed, and his ability was directly applied to him. Although the speed of controlling objects is not slow, it is still much worse than directly consuming a large amount of chakra flying. Maybe wait for him. When he arrived, Sakura's soul was completely dissipated. Just in case, Iruka chose the safest way. However, just as he was about to leave, the crescent moon on the side suddenly said. Although I don't know what happened, since it's dangerous, it means you need medical ninja now, right? Hearing these words, Iruka, who was eager to rush over, was originally stopped by the crescent moon, and his somewhat impatient thoughts were suddenly swept away. She was a little surprised and asked, what do you mean, you can medical ninjutsu? Quote. I can use both healing jutsu and healing jutsu technique, but it's not a special grandmaster. I can only deal with general injuries. I can't do anything for special traumas such as poisoning, but I'm still a medical ninja for the time being. After getting the affirmative answer, Iruka was immediately rejoiced. Originally, he planned to rush over to stabilize the soul of Sakura who has not completely separated, and then use the control to fly Sakura to Konoha Hospital. However, this will not only be due to time. The delay will inevitably leave little Sakura with serious sequelae, and will expose her strength to the public, which will definitely cause a series of troubles. And if Zan Yu is a medical ninja, it won't be so much trouble. Even if she is only at the level of a general medical ninja, Iruka is confident that Sakura can be saved without any sequelae. It just so happens that I brought some medical supplies with me, so I don't need to go back to get them, I just set off. Before I finished speaking, I suddenly felt that my waist was held by a big hand, and stopped talking. It seemed that I didn't expect that I would be held by someone for another day, and his delicate and pretty face was full of consternation. The owner who looked at this hand. What are you doing? As she said, she subconsciously wanted to break free, but Iruka's arm around her right hand suddenly tightened, and after Xuanyu heard Iruka's grieving grumble, it's not a kid anymore, be sensible, don't make trouble. With that said, Iruka took a deep breath, and then once again extracted a large amount of chakra to increase the power of force field control. Anxiously, he didn't seem to realize the prevention of men and women. Hearing Iruka's words, the gaze that Crescent Moon looked at Iruka's side face suddenly became full of incredible. You mean me the wrong person? And why do you take it for granted? Is it common sense for me to be assaulted by you as a rascal? Stop talking nonsense, hold on to me. Iruka was too lazy to say. A powerful chakra burst out of his body, the spiritual realm instantly connected to reality, and the ability was activated extremely quickly. Force field control. The next moment, the bodies of the two suddenly left the ground, appearing in the air over 30 meters almost instantly. When I came back to my senses, the street I had just walked had turned into a plan. I couldn't react to Crescent, who knew Iruka's ability less than Izumi. The ability of the vision field is within the range, but she doesn't know the specific ability to use it. She really did not expect that she would appear in a place tens of meters high in the blink of an eye. Even if 4th Hokage's space-time ninjutsu can move in an instant, it takes time to throw the special kunai engraved with the space-time ninjutsu seal, right? Iruka's speed just now was simply unreasonable. And at this time, she finally understood why Iruka wanted to let herself hold on to him, and fell at this inhuman speed movement. Even if there is a virtual left, it is probably not much better. Don't say to save people at that time. I guess I have to be sent to the hospital. Boom 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 boom. In this place that has been completely turned into ruins, the surface is deeply sunken, forming a huge crater with a radius of 100 meters. After another strong collision, a red figure slammed on the ground, and a big crater was instantly smashed. Advertisement. Damn it damn it damn it. The dust was instantly scattered by a red chakra tail, and Naruto, whose body was wrapped in a red chakra coat, stood up quickly. Although his aura was still amazing at this time, his body was extremely embarrassed, and the skin on his body was there. It seems that Chakra, who has the ability to heal itself, did not have a trace of wounds, but his clothes were tattered, his orange jacket was full of cracks, and the zipper was completely opened, revealing the black top that was messed up by dust. Even if he suddenly gains power far better than before, the power gap between him and Orochimaru is still huge. Even so, he has no plan to retreat. A strong hatred fills his heart, and the enemy who killed his companions is in front of him, tearing Orochimaru to pieces. He would never give up before. At this moment, two familiar figures suddenly appeared beside Naruto. Naruto, we're here to help you. Although I really want to know what is going on with you and Sasuke in this abnormal state, the top priority now is to get rid of that guy. Naruto reluctantly nodded, and then burst out a powerful red chakra again. As chakra strengthened, a tail suddenly appeared in Chakra's coat. It seemed that he couldn't control this power. Naruto's face became extremely hideous. Fortunately, although his consciousness was a little fuzzy, the enemy and me could still be distinguished. He looked directly at him. In the direction, Orochimaru's face gradually became difficult to look not far away. Of course, the reason Orochimaru's face turned ugly was not the appearance of Shikamaru and Choji. Even with Naruto who burst out with two chakra tails, the three of them would not pose any threat to Orochimaru, one of Sannin, and could only delay him. Time is up. But the worst thing for Orochimaru now is to delay time. Sasuke has his own ideas, he is not a simple avenger, he can't shake his heart with power or words at all. If you want to get him, you must do it while he has not fully grown up. The longer the time, the longer the opportunity to start. The less, especially Konoha has a monster-like existence besides Hokage, but he can't sneak in if he wants to sneak in. If you miss this opportunity, it's still unknown whether you will have another chance to start, but now it's not that easy to start. Sasuke's own strength is left aside. Jinchuriki, who possesses the strongest tail beast Nine-Tails Demon Fox power, is not easy to deal with, although it was not difficult to kill Naruto with his power, but it was not possible in a short time. In fact, Orochimaru regretted killing little Sakura. He didn't expect that Naruto would be Nine-Tails Jinchuriki. In the extreme anger, the power of Nine Tails was triggered. The situation has become so complicated now, but the matter has ended. Can figure out a way to bypass Naruto to catch Sasuke. Orochimaru lightly scratched his thumb, and then quickly sealed his hands. When the last seal was completed and he was preparing for summoning to produce his strongest summoning beast, a cold voice suddenly sounded in his mind. That man is coming soon. If you don't want to die, give up and run away. Orochimaru's face suddenly stiffened, and then full of irritation and unwillingness, he looked at Naruto who was bathed in red light not far away. Naruto didn't care what he was thinking, he suddenly jumped up high, waving his hands condescendingly, and the next moment, two huge chakra paws slammed down at Orochimaru fiercely. Boom 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 boom. A huge bombardment sounded, and two deep pits appeared instantly where Orochimaru was. However, Naruto in midair frowned suddenly. Although Orochimaru did not make an evasive action just now, he did not feel that he attacked him. Naruto gently landed on the ground, and then used the enhanced perception power of the demon fox coat to find Orochimaru's hiding place by sensing the airflow around him, but he couldn't find a trace of Orochimaru at all. Damn it, that guy escaped. Naruto hit the ground with an angry fist. The huge power caused countless cracks around him. One can imagine how restless his heart was at this time. Fortunately, he realized that Shikamaru and Choji were on the sidelines, and he was not completely lost. Reasonably, when there was a cool feeling in his mind, the chakra coat on Naruto's body gradually dissipated in the air, and then Naruto seemed to collapse, his eyes closed, and he fell to the ground completely unconscious. At the same time, at a distance of tens of meters away from the huge pit that had turned into a battlefield, I felt the little Sakura gradually lose his vitality. Ino's face was covered with tears, and the tears kept falling on the pale face of little Sakura. However, it was unable to bring a little bit of life to the little Sakura. Sasuke, who had recovered from deep thought, looked at Ino with a sad face, and sighed suddenly for some reason, just about to say something, just at this moment. Cry a shit. People are not dead yet, you won't be too late to cry when she is dead. Familiar voices sounded. Sasuke and Ino were taken aback at the same time, and then they saw the air not far away suddenly shake twice. The next moment, Iruka's scar face that made them so familiar appeared out of nowhere in front of them. Behind him was a strange woman, but Sasuke was very familiar with her black turtleneck top. That is the most common dress of the female ninja of the Uchiha clan. Sasuke can even tell that there must be a fan pattern on the back of the dress, which is the unique clan emblem of the Uchiha clan. In other words, she is a member of the Uchiha clan, and Sasuke knows that there is only one clan in the world except her brother Uchiha Itachi and Uchiha Izumi, who is ambiguous with Iruka. Uchiha Crescent Moon. Chapter 141. Okay, just take the little Sakura to the hospital and rest for a month. Iruka wiped the sweat from his face, and then put the dim soul stone in the scroll to seal it. The Crescent Moon's face was also a bit tired, but it was obviously better than Iruka. After all, Iruka was very laborious and used the fastest flight speed he could use to rush over. After arriving, he immediately used the soul flares to activate the ability to imprison the little Sakura's soul in the body, whether it is chakra or mentally, it is very exhausting. And Crescent Moon is simply launching medical ninjutsu, although the work time is long, but it is just mental exhaustion. With her cage-level chakra intensity, it will not cause much burden to the body. Crescent Moon retracted the medical scroll and placed it in the ninja bag around her waist. She did not even glance at Sasuke, who was also a survivor of the Uchiha clan. She stretched her waist quite coquettishly, and then said lazily. Go back when you are done, Mr. Iruka, lack of sleep is a natural enemy of women. Please, there is no reason why ninjas are afraid to stay up late. Iruka replied weakly. At this moment, Ino on the side said uncertainly. Ms. Iruka, is little Sakura really all right? You should know that it was stabbed to the point. Even if it is sent to Konoha Hospital, it is difficult to save life. Even if you have the means of treatment, you should at least be in an operating room full of medical equipment. A medical scroll is placed around the person's body, and 5 shadow clones can be used at the same time to use medical ninjutsu to save a person who has died frequently. I forgot to tell you that people with abilities are different from ordinary people. Different. Iruka nodded, and then continued with the doubtful eyes of several people. The biggest difference between a capable person and an ordinary person is the soul. The soul of the capable person is very tough. Even if the body that contains the soul is damaged, even if it is the key, the energy of the soul is also it will not dissipate as quickly as ordinary people. Iruka didn't say a word. That is, a person who has reached a certain level of ability can even achieve an immortal soul. Even if there is no body, it will not dissipate, only a complete body can be reborn. That's right, he was born again like this, but it's better not to tell the secret. If the capable person is so easy to kill, the K&W world in the previous life would have been peaceful. In fact, every capable person in the K&W world will not easily die even if the critical part is severely damaged in the battle. The capable person will inevitably be killed. Equipped with a device that can maintain the stability of the soul for a certain period of time, and then only need to be completely cured before the soul is separated. With the scientific level of the science and military circles, even if the capable person is subject to frequent death attacks, as long as he does not die, he can fully recover his combat power in less than 10 hours. It is also because of this that the war will continue almost endlessly, until a certain the most capable person was born. This is the world of ninjas. Naturally, the level of science cannot be as good as the science of science, but for Iruka, there is no way to save a critically wounded person. He can use the soul Yaoshi to force his soul to stabilize in his body, and then he only needs to wait for Crescent Moon to use medical ninjutsu to restore little Sakura's body to the point where he can't die. As a medical ninja, the foundation of the basics is to rejuvenate life. If you can't do it without scruples, you are still a gross medical ninja. Of course, if the brain is directly destroyed, even the capable person will die directly, and in addition to the brain. The heart is the main stability point of the soul. If the heart is destroyed, no one can stop the separation of the soul. Fortunately, Sakura is not attacked to the heart, otherwise it will be useless even if I rushed over. Advertisement. Hearing Iruka's explanation, Ino suddenly sighed. She thought that Sakura was dead, but she didn't expect Iruka to pull her back from the ghost gate. In some ways, Iruka is really omnipotent. After the little Sakura was out of danger, Sasuke explained the situation to Iruka. When he heard the name, Orochimaru, Iruka was a little confused, and then soon came to mind that the one who fought with him 5 years ago does not look like a human being. Man. Iruka also wanted to ask for some details, but at this moment, under the force field perception he deliberately released to prevent accidents, he suddenly sensed several familiar force field fluctuations. These force field fluctuations were clearly divided into 2 parties, one of which was there are 3 force field fluctuations. It is the 8th class of Hinata and the others. They are accelerating toward here, and the other party is the crowd. When Iruka confirmed the identity of the leader of the other team who fluctuated in the force field, his face suddenly changed. What's wrong, Mr. Iruka? Nothing is nothing. As he said, Iruka stepped on the ground suddenly, and the ability was quickly activated. The next moment, a 3-meter-long square stone slab suddenly rose from the ground along with 4 straight cracks, carrying the unconscious little girl. Sakura's body was steadily suspended in the air. Iruka quickly jumped onto the stone slab, and then waved at the crescent moon and said to Sasuke, that. Sasuke, Ino, the examiner has already noticed the anomaly here, and is rushing over. If he asks, you just say it. It's Xuanyu who saved you. Don't mention my name, do you know? Quote. Sasuke looked at Iruka with a puzzled look. Since it was his own team, why would Iruka show such a flustered look? It was the first time he saw Iruka that looked like a ghost, which was different from usual or wise. The image of laziness is far from each other. Naturally, he didn't know that Iruka had a relationship with the chief examiner of their second Chunin exam. That bathhouse incident was the starting point of all his troubles. If there hadn't been that accident, Izumi and Xuanyu would definitely not be like today. With so many intersections with him, the two of them are already troublesome enough. Iruka doesn't want to be recognized by the last party, Mitarashi Anko, otherwise God knows what troubles will arise. No time to explain. Sasuke, Ino, remember what I said, if you let me know that you betray me, you know. Leaving the two with a negative smile, Iruka quickly launched the refraction technique. The next moment, the stone slab carrying him, Crescent Moon, and the unconscious little Sakura quickly disappeared into the night, leaving his face a little dumbfounded. The two looked at each other. Hey, are you all right? When he came back to his senses, Ino noticed several figures suddenly appearing not far away. The chief examiner Mitarashi Anko in a beige trench coat was headed, and 6 ninjas in examiner uniforms were walking towards him quickly. For some reason, as soon as Ino saw Anko, who was in good shape, the rather flustered look of Iruka just appeared in his mind, and he couldn't help but come up with an unbelievable thought. Is Mr. Iruka afraid of the chief examiner? It's hard to imagine. The strength is so strong that it can solve almost all situations perfectly, and can develop an incredible power for them, and can cultivate the superpower of Uchiha Izumi's Konoha top combat force. Iruka would actually be afraid of one. Especially Jonin. This is unscientific. But the truth is so nonsense. Except for this reason, Ino really can't find any other reason to explain Iruka's flustered expression. By the way, didn't Mrs. Iruka like Sister Changpu? Why is Mr. Asuma always saying that Mr. Iruka and Uchiha Izumi have an ambiguous relationship, and the beautiful big sister just now seems to be very familiar with Mrs. Iruka. There is always a feeling that all kinds of beautiful women will always appear inexplicably around Mr. Iruka. Could it be that Teacher Iruka is a scumbag? I noticed that the chief examiner was rushing, because he was concerned about the existence of the beautiful big sister, and was afraid that the two women's accidental crash would cause a fire in the backyard, so hurriedly took the beautiful big sister to escape. The more I thought about it, the more possible it became, and as I thought about it, a raging 8 trigrams fire suddenly appeared in Ino's eyes. Chapter 142. A fire in the backyard. I can't imagine that there will be people who are scared in existence like you. If I remember correctly, the chief examiner was the last woman you saw the body of 5 years ago besides me and Izumi. It's because of this reason. So now you see her like a mouse and a cat. After handing Sakura to the hospital, Zanyu and Iruka returned to the apartment. Looking at the back of Iruka who was opening the door in front of him, Zanyu suddenly twitched her mouth and asked in a mocking tone. With a click, Iruka opened the door, and then answered without looking back while taking off his shoes at the entrance. Anyway, you're a normal woman. Don't you feel ashamed to take the initiative to mention being seen by a man? And I'm not afraid of her, I just don't want to cause trouble. When I heard the term, normal woman, in Iruka's words, Zanyu's black jewel-like eyes flashed with self-deprecating light, and then shook his head, throwing away the thoughts that shouldn't be in his mind. Care a little bit, but to be seen is to be seen, there is nothing to escape from, and there will be no less meat. After taking off the genin shoes, Crescent Moon followed Iruka and walked into the living room. Iruka, who was about to make tea to make the best of the friendship of the landlord, was stunned when he heard this, and then glanced at a part of Crescent Moon that was extremely attractive to men. Disdain. Hey, come here, if you were so free and easy at the time, why would Mao arrest me to the police department? Thanks to this, I was inexplicably involved in an event destined to be recorded in the annals of history, and later it was because of you. The irresponsible relationship made me have to take care of a big trouble. Even if I was wrong in the bathhouse, the price for it would be too great, right? No matter what I think, I have suffered a lot. Crescent Moon walked to the sofa, stretched out his hands, and at the same time tilted his upper body, letting his whole body lean on the cushion of the sofa. His huge chest suddenly deformed under squeezing, and he put his legs on the sofa while making a seductive sound, making the whole person as if hung on the top of the cushion, and then said lazily. But I think you made a lot of money. That's Izumi, the beautiful girl who was crushed by many Uchiha boys before. Even now it is the most popular female ninja among young ninjas, plus the Uchiha clan, the blood of genius, the beauty and strength of her. Whoever can marry her as a wife will instantly become a winner in life. I really don't know how much paste is in your head, and getting along with such an outstanding beautiful girl day and night, it's actually reading those filthy books all day. Your way of doing things is really puzzling. Didn't I tell you? Iruka made the tea, and at the same time took out some snacks from the refrigerator and put them on the tray. Holding the tray, he walked over with Crescent Moon tilting his head, and put the tea and snacks on the coffee table. After getting on, Iruka sat on the sofa on the other side and continued the topic just now. Age, I am 4 years behind Izumi, how could I have thoughts about her? And you said that Izumi likes me or something, that's purely your own subjective judgment. I know that I still have it. I'm not the type that little girls like. Little Sakura and Ino often call me Teacher Gaihu behind their backs. So, how could Izumi like someone with my personality? Schwanyu sighed as if giving up something, and then cast Iruka a bit disgustedly. I can see it, as long as it is something you believe, no matter what others say, you can't change your mind, stubborn guy. Quote. It's called self-preservation, the kind of guy who is changed in a few words, but it's just a fool with no character. A person who emphasizes character all day long is the least characterless. Whatever you say. Iruka shrugged, took a bite of the dessert on the plate, and then seemed to realize something suddenly, and pointed to Crescent Moon's little feet on the sofa and said, should you pay attention to your behavior as a guest? I can be regarded as a host of hospitality anyhow, can't you be a little more conscious? And what the hell is your posture? Where are you from? Hearing this, Zanyu curled his lips, and didn't mean to leave at all, still hanging lazily on the cushion. Wonderful, isn't it just a broken sofa? If you step on it, I will pay you a new one. Today, I was tortured by the fascinated shoulders for a whole day. My whole shoulders are sorely sore, even if I lean on the chair. I feel uncomfortable. If I don't take this posture to ease it, I feel that my shoulders are about to go away. Hearing this, Iruka's mouth suddenly twitched, and the half-eaten snack in his hand fell directly to the ground with a pop. FK. The cause of your shoulders is sore, even if you think about it with your leg hair, you know it is caused by the overgrown part of your body, right? Don't tell me that you don't even know this kind of thing. Advertisement. Overdeveloped parts of the head. What do you mean? Are my arms too long? Where Iruka could not see, the corner of Schwanyu's mouth twitched slightly, revealing a touching smile, but the words she said did not match her expression at all. The ignorant tone seemed to show that she was incomprehensible. Girly. Pretend it slowly, I'm going to take a shower. Iruka was too lazy to talk nonsense with Zanyu here, stood up, and walked towards the bathroom while yawning. Upon seeing this, Zanyu suddenly chuckled undisguisedly. Obviously she was very conscious of her own problems. Just teasing Iruka. Just when Iruka was about to walk into the bathroom, Zanyu suddenly said softly, "Mr. Iruka, do you need me to rub your back?" Hearing the words filled with countless pink auras, Iruka responded calmly without a trace on her face. "Come on, I want to live a few more years, but I can't be rubbed off somehow." It was not that he had a problem with his orientation, but because he knew that the woman named Uchiha Crescent Moon was never a gentle person. Dot 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 dot. No words for a night, Xuanyu did not suffer from Kuan sleepwalking problem. Early the next morning, Xuanyu didn't know what to do. He consciously made breakfast and left the house. When Iruka came to the living room, when looking at the dark, pasty substance in the basin lying flat on the dining table, the crescent moon was long gone. I'm sure, the guy Xuanyu doesn't have any cooking skills. Shaking his head, Iruka didn't hesitate to throw the fruit of Zanyu's unfamiliar labor in the trash, then took out the bread from the refrigerator, warmed it casually, and ate the butter directly. Compared to the simple but delicious breakfast that Izumi was at home, I don't know how much this kind of food for my stomach is inferior. Fortunately, Iruka doesn't care much about eating, otherwise he will really be raised by Izumi. Of creatures. I just swallowed the last bite of bread, thinking about where to hang out today. Bang! Suddenly, there was a soft noise in the living room, accompanied by a burst of white smoke. An old man wearing a red and white robe, rickety, appeared in front of Iruka out of thin air. Master third generation, come here early in the morning, what's the matter with me? Regarding the sudden appearance of the third generation, Iruka suddenly sighed for some reason, as the so-called nothing does not go to the Three Treasures Hall. Third generation is a very polite person, although Iruka has already seen through his true face as a boring old man. Usually if there is something to look for, I usually ask Shiranui Xuanjian to inform him of the past. Even if it is necessary to voluntarily, it is not necessary to directly use the body flicker technique, and come in directly without knocking the door. If you do this now, it proves this. What third generation asked him to say this time is absolutely nothing trivial. To be honest, Iruka is not afraid of everything. The only thing he is afraid of is trouble, and third generation is obviously one of the people who can cause him the most trouble. Sure enough, third generation took off the pipe from his mouth, his face suddenly became serious, and without even saying hello from the scene, he said directly. I came to you this time to talk to you about Uchiha Crescent. No, it should be said that the Uchiha clan was annihilated. Some things have to be explained to you as Konoha's last barrier. Chapter 143. 4 days have passed since third generation's sudden visit. The crescent moon had been with Iruka for 4 days except for going out that morning and disappeared for a long time. During the day, he always used various means to force Iruka to go shopping in the commercial street. If it was Izumi Iruka, I could be a little guarded, but facing the crescent moon which is several times stronger than Izumi's scheming, Iruka did not have the power to fight back. In the end Iruka even thought about the crescent moon. The strengthened version of Izumi, or whether Izumi is the weakened version of the crescent moon, has no strength for the meaningless question. At the same time, Iruka clearly realizes that Zanyu's character is extremely obsessive to fashion trends. Compared with her craziness that everything marked with the fashion forefront logo has to be stuffed into a shopping bag, Kwanmei's kind as long as it is the shopping rule of buying everything you like, whether useful or not, is simply weak. Of course, compared with these two shopaholics, Chenku who only buys what he needs is definitely a thrifty girl. All kinds of nutritious thoughts came to mind. Iruka, who had been devastated for 4 days and had lost several kilograms, appeared haggardly at the gate of the central tower in the deep forest of death, and stood beside him. Is wearing a pink shirt with bare shoulders and a tight-fitting black t-shirt inside, which makes the already plump breasts very imposing. Underneath are beige cropped trousers and a pair of small floral shoes to set off its slenderness. Dressed up with beautiful legs, long black hair straight down to the waist, 3 to 7 bangs on the front of the forehead, and light makeup that appears to be intellectual, the whole person is full of a strong and elegant young lady temperament. Crescent moon. The two stood together like this, not like peers of equal status at all, but like nobles and servants, and if they were more like ninjas, they would naturally be Iruka wearing a black turtleneck and black trousers with a ninja vest. Zanyu, who doesn't even wear the forehead protector, doesn't look like a ninja at all. Yo, I thought you didn't plan to come, Mr. Iruka. When the two of them just walked in, a familiar voice from Iruka suddenly sounded beside them. When they turned their heads and looked over, they saw that they were also black clothed and black trousers, but only a white hedgehog with a one-piece mask but so handsome. His head beckoned to them. I don't want to come if I can. Iruka lifted his dead fish eyes, and replied weakly. He was telling the truth, with the 9 of them Naruto. Oh, no, with the strength of 8 of them, unless they encounter a strong person who pretends to be genin like Orochimaru with a certain purpose to take an exam, the general strength of genin can't be their opponent at all. Look at a bunch of kiddies. It was so boring. As for the competition between the 8 of them, he was a little interested, but it was only a little bit. This interest was not enough to make him come over. And he appeared here only because. Mr. Iruka, didn't you want to come either? Then let's go the same route as yesterday. The originally boring Xuanyu immediately became interested when he heard Iruka's words and was full of enthusiasm to suggest. However, these words made Iruka's face stiff, and after reacting, he hurriedly interrupted Xuanyu's speech. No, I was just joking, you don't know, I'm so familiar with Kakashi, I can't help but make a few jokes when we meet, don't be serious, you will lose if you are serious. With that said, Iruka unexpectedly activated his abilities suddenly, and appeared next to Kakashi almost instantly, holding Kakashi's shoulders, looking like a good friend of Kakashi for a lifetime, and at the same time giving Kakashi a, hurry up and cooperate with me. Look in the eyes. Oh, yes, Mr. Iruka is right. It is difficult for Kakashi's dignified elite, Jonin, to be threatened by a nominal Chunin, and had to stand up and perform his terrible acting skills. Xuanyu narrowed her eyes, but she didn't get tangled in this topic anymore. Instead, she looked at Iruka meaningfully, chuckled, and said with some ridicule. Izumi told me that Mr. Iruka, you are the kind of person who can fall asleep within 5 seconds even if you watch a hot-blooded movie. Isn't those genin confrontations more boring than the movie? Why do you prepare for this kind of boring, Mr. Iruka interested in the exam? What stupid thing to say. Iruka loosened Kakashi's neck and continued awe-inspiringly. Naruto Sasuke are the students I have worked hard to train. Their strength represents my teaching level to a certain extent. Don't look at me like this. Anyway, I am also a glorious ninja teacher. How can I teach myself? Are you not interested in the strength of the students? How can those hypnosis screens compare with my lovely students? Kakashi on the side suddenly twitched his eyes when he heard this. He recalled that in the last few days, in order to repay the favor of the country, he had to help Iruka go to school as a substitute for lessons whenever he had free time. Faced with the situation of the childish children who were dying, he wanted to punch Iruka in that serious nonsense face. Fortunately, this kind of torture is only a few times. Ebisu, who usually doesn't know what he's gotten, is helping Iruka. The few times he helped substitute lessons were only when Ebisu was too busy. Otherwise he really can't stand it. Hey, Xuanyu smiled slightly, and then seemed to believe Iruka's statement, and said helplessly, in this case, there is no way. Advertisement. Hearing this, Iruka's face loosened, and Xuanyu suddenly looked at Kakashi with interest. Sharingan Kakashi. Hello, I am Mr. Iruka's friend, Uchiha Crescent Moon. Hearing Xuanyu calling himself, Kakashi knew that this was a normal social etiquette, even if a friend's friend is not necessarily a friend, but since they met it is necessary to introduce it. However, when he heard the name of Zanyu, he was stunned. The costumes of the Uchiha clan are easy to recognize. Except for the conspicuous clan emblem, they usually wear dark black collar shirts on the outside, while Crescent Moon is a fashionable dress at this time, which is far from Uchiha's style. If not, she introduced herself and Kakashi really couldn't see that she was a member of the Uchiha clan who was almost known for being rigorous and powerful. Hello. Kakashi responded courteously. He was not surprised that Xuanyu knew his name. After all, as one of Konoha's most powerful combat power, he had already become famous. Not only Konoha, but the whole ninja world didn't know him. There are very few people. But the name Uchiha Crescent Moon. Kakashi, has the qualifier that hasn't been held in 5 years started yet? Iruka asked lazily. Not yet, I am preparing to gather, waiting for the examiner Mitarashi Anko for the second exam. Wait, what are you talking about? That woman is actually going to play. Isn't the second exam over? Seeing Iruka looking a little eager, Kakashi looked at him with some confusion, but still explained. According to the regulations, she will announce something about the results of the second exam. Not just her, but all the examiners will be there. Kakashi hesitated, and finally asked, what's the matter? Mr. Iruka, Anko has what does it matter to you? No, it's nothing. Iruka shook his head and was about to say something, but the next moment suddenly came Hokage's summoning order. Upon seeing this, he frowned. Kakashi, you go in first, I have something a little bit wrong. Kakashi nodded, and used the body flicker technique to turn into a cloud of smoke and left without asking. He didn't care about Iruka's personal affairs at all, otherwise he wouldn't see a strange beauty beside Iruka without asking. After Kakashi's figure disappeared completely, Iruka suddenly turned around and looked at Crescent Moon seriously. Xuanyu, all I can rely on is you. It seemed that the words of affectionate confession made Zanyu couldn't help turning over Byakugan. With her poor understanding of Iruka, he would definitely not be able to say such high-level words with that kind of meaning. The Uchiha clan's illusion arts are not used to do such trivial things, forget it. Seeing that you have worked so hard these days, I will help you once. Hearing this, Iruka breathed a sigh of relief. Thank you so much, Crescent Moon, you are such a good person. However, at this moment, Zanyu suddenly looked at Iruka's gaze, with an extremely solemn expression on his face. Compared to such trivial things, Mr. Iruka, shouldn't we talk about business? For example, Mr. Hokage told you 4 days ago about the things before I left Konoha and the truth about the Uchiha clan's extermination. Chapter 144. Leave aside my business. About the genocide of the Uchiha clan, you must be very clear, right? As he walked forward, Crescent Moon said to Iruka behind him that the shinobi world had been a sensation for a long time without turning his head back. Even 5 years later, there is still no end to the topic today. That's right, Uchiha Itachi, what an incredible man. Even with such a serious topic, Iruka's face still didn't have a trace of solemnity, as usual, as if nothing could shake his state of mind. Regarding Iruka's post-dinner-like attitude, Zanyu frowned slightly. When she walked to the side wall, she stopped, then turned around and faced Iruka. I know the man's thing very well. I care about another thing more than this. Even though the topic gradually extended towards the opposite direction, the cage-level chakra hidden in the mysterious body of Crescent Moon still did not move at all. Obviously, She did not have any hostility towards Iruka, who was clearly standing in Konoha's position. Inadvertently saved me and Izumi, and even you who have been providing an umbrella for Izumi in the follow-up of this incident. After knowing the cause of this incident, Mr. Iruka, what is your current attitude? Leaning on the wall, Xuanyu put her hands on her chest, raised her head slightly, looked at a corner of Iruka that was shining with black light diagonally above Iruka. The corner of her mouth was slightly hooked, revealing a meaningful smile, and after a while she continued to whisper softly. Road. Is it chosen to kill me, who is a great threat to the village just in case, or even Izumi and Sasuke who are also quite threatening after knowing the truth, or to ignore our threat? Since then, 4 days have passed, you should think about it, right? The indifferent tone seems to be telling something that has nothing to do with him, but Iruka can hear the slight bitterness in the words. Without the family as sustenance, Konoha's high-level will, and even the entire ninja world cannot tolerate me and Izumi as survivors. They were all people who should have died in the hands of those 2 guys with the tribe 5 years ago, but because of your accidental intervention, we survived, and only for no benefit, without any ambitions for Uchiha's power. You, who saved us purely by acting according to your own will, are qualified to provide us with the last piece of pure shelter. So. Speaking of this, Xuanyu paused, and her face suddenly calmed down like never before. If you want to kill me. Not interested in. Before the words of the crescent moon were finished, Iruka was suddenly interrupted, and saw him shrug his shoulders. His tone did not produce the slightest abnormality due to the words of the crescent moon. Neither the Uchiha clan, the village, or even the future of the entire ninja world, is not something that an ordinary ninja teacher should care about. As a ninja teacher, only the growth of the students is what I really care about. From the standpoint of Konoha Shinobi, I will protect Konoha, but I will only protect Konoha. After speaking, Iruka seemed to not want to be entangled in this topic anymore, raised his footsteps and walked towards the entrance. When passing by Zon Yu seemed to understand something suddenly, her face loosened, and a smile of relief filled her face. Is it just protecting Konoha? Ah, single quote. After confirming a certain conclusion, Crescent Moon stood up, and then followed Iruka not far away in a few steps. In a certain room, watching the 2 people moving away on the display, their stature seemed to be better than usual. The more rickety 3rd generation suddenly sighed long. A true ninja teacher only cares about the growth of his students. Is it? Sure enough, even if Iruka has the power to surpass me, he has no corresponding ambitions, but maybe this is the best. While whispering, there was a knock on the door not far away. Master Hokage, we are waiting for you after all the members have assembled. I see. 3rd generation responded, then put on the hat, opened the door and walked out. After a while, he saw everyone on the steps below. Jonin, a group of candidates including Kakashi, Red, and Asuma, stood in a row with his hands on his back and stood in the middle. Several examiners stood on both sides, and 20 candidates stood in a square array at the bottom. Among everyone, there was a large empty space. That was where Hokage stood. Where is Otonin's leader, Jonin? Advertisement. Noting that Jonin, the leader of the 7 groups of candidates, was missing an individual, 3rd generation asked with a frown. It seems that I didn't come because I wasn't feeling well. After getting the answer, 3rd generation nodded, and then left the matter behind. Jonin was the guide of a small village. It didn't matter whether he came or not. It just took a form. After saying a few nonsense words that are meaningless to Iruka, 3rd generation stepped back, and a sick young man stepped forward to explain the purpose of the pre-examination. Since there were 20 people left, it happened to be able to form 10 groups of confrontations. The young man named Moonlight Hayate asked symbolically if anyone wanted to abstain, and after a minute no one abstained, he directly beat Anko. Winks. Anko nodded and used the radio to send out instructions. The next moment, there was a sudden noise from behind the guide Jonin, and then a large screen appeared in everyone's sight. When the 2 names, Uchiha Sasuke, and Bronze Armor, were displayed on the display, Moonlight Hayate said. The first round is ready to start, except for the contestants, please go to the top. This sentence is simply the sound of nature to Iruka. Although the crescent moon standing upstairs has quietly performed illusion on Anko, it is still a little uncomfortable for Anko to stand less than 4 meters away. However, in order not to look too garish, he followed Kakashi and them slowly towards the stairs. Just halfway through the stairs, there was a sudden rush of footsteps behind him, and then he heard Naruto's familiar loud voice. Ms. Iruka, how is little Sakura? This sound that resounded throughout the examination room suddenly made Iruka's mouth twitch, and he subconsciously looked at Anko who was walking up not far away from the corner of his eye. When he saw Anko just glanced at himself, he lost interest. After opening his eyes, he breathed a sigh of relief. What do you mean? Did I teach you to speak so loudly? Iruka casually gave Naruto a hand knife, and then said angrily, little Sakura is okay. He is undergoing follow-up treatment. It is estimated that he will continue to pester Sasuke vigorously in less than a month. Don't you worry. With that said, Iruka stopped looking at Naruto who was relieved behind him, and quickly climbed up the stairs a few steps, and walked directly towards the crescent moon that was beckoning him not far away. Look at your unpromising look just now, do you just distrust my illusion skills? As soon as he got closer, Iruka heard Xuanyu's complaint. He had only mentioned an extremely heavy topic not long ago, but at this time, Xuanyu was as if he had forgotten what had just happened, and his personality was as agile as ever. It's just an instinctive reaction, but it just proves that your illusion is really powerful, so I can feel relieved. Iruka smiled, and the next moment, just as Moonlight Hayate was about to start shouting, he suddenly rushed to the bottom and shouted. Sasuke, solve him in 3 seconds. Otherwise, don't say you are my student, I can't afford to lose that face. After speaking, Iruka glanced at Anko who was standing on the other side again, and her face suddenly loosened when she saw that she didn't seem to have heard it. Sasuke, who was about to use his skills a little bit, was stunned when he heard this. After reacting, he immediately turned around, nodded to Iruka, and responded without hesitation. I see, Mr. Iruka, please wait and see. Obviously, Sasuke didn't put his opponent in his eyes at all. This kind of despising attitude suddenly made the eyes of the red bronze armor standing opposite him hidden under the sunglasses show a murderous intent. Chapter 145 Iruka's attitude. What did that guy just say? Kill the opponent in 3 seconds. Haha, I'm so ridiculous. Even if Uchiha Sasuke is a super genius, he can't do it. Is this guy here to make fun? Hey, who am I? It turns out that it is Iruka, the soft-fried man, who deserves to be a man who relies on his mouth to eat. The level of big talk is really superb. Speak down, if you make that guy hate him, with his lips, you'll be over when Uchiha Izumi comes back. Hey, it's really uncomfortable to worry about this kind of guy. Those Chunin examiners who had been unwelcome to Iruka on weekdays saw Iruka whispering loudly. The stronger Chunin Izumoko did not participate in their quiet ridicule, but they also sneered at Iruka's words. This is the qualifier before the 3rd exam. The people who can get here are the elites of Genin who passed the 1st and 2nd exams. Their strength is definitely not bad. With Sasuke Naruto, there are more than 3 of them. The strength shown during the pre-graduation exams a month ago can be won, but it will not be as lightly stated as Iruka said. Even if it is uninterrupted training, it takes less than 4 months. Uchiha Sasuke, the strongest of the 9, can only grow to the point of special Jonin strength at most, and it will not end in an instant, no matter how fast it is. Fighting. So, the game begins. Moonlight Hurricane coughed twice, and gave out instructions to start with a sickly expression. However, the next moment, he seemed to realize something suddenly, and he retreated suddenly and quickly. As soon as he retreated, a blue-white light with an unusually noisy, papa papa, sound flashed by him at extremely fast speed, and he heard a dull sound as soon as his feet landed. Bang! It was the sound of a heavy object falling from a height. When he looked over, Sasuke, who was bathed in a blue-white arc, was slowly lowering his arm, and not far from him, the tall bronze armor was standing. Lying on the ground unconsciously, several cracks appeared on the floor under him, as if to tell how powerful the shock was just now. From the beginning of the storm to the loss of consciousness of the red bronze armor, the whole process took only 2 seconds, and the game ended in 2 seconds. Even Kakashi as the guide Jonin couldn't help but be a little surprised, let alone the others. How can this be so fast? Uchiha Sasuke, the heir to the genius bloodline of the Uchiha clan, how strong is this young man? The Chunin was so surprised that almost all their jaws fell. While they were still whispering against Iruka, Sasuke had used his powerful strength to understate Iruka's seemingly whimsical indicators, which was tantamount to being in their faces. He gave a slap in the face. Winner, Uchiha Sasuke. It took a long time for Haifeng to come back to his senses and announce the result directly. He had watched a lot of games. It was the first time he saw the victory and defeat so quickly. The speed that Sasuke showed just now, I vaguely felt the trajectory of the attack, and it was difficult to defend even if I faced it. The strongest newcomer among the 9 special graduates really deserves his name. For this easy victory, Sasuke's handsome face didn't have a trace of fluctuation. After releasing the 2nd stage of the thunder technique, he directly inserted his hands into the pants kabuto, and walked towards the stairs not far away with a calm expression on his face. Although the use of the 2nd stage of the thunder body technique will produce very serious negative effects, it will only make the body a little tired for a moment, and it will not cause any major problems. As that guy the strongest of the 3 shit little ghosts. Damn it, it's really strong, I didn't even see his movements in the attack just now. Kankuro gritted his teeth. Sasuke felt even more dangerous to him than Gaara, and Temari's face was not very pretty. Only Gaara's face remained unchanged, but his heart could be seen from his trembling body. It's not as calm as the expression on his face. Advertisement. Not only Kankuro and the Sand Shinobi trio, but the expressions of the Otonin trio, who was frightened by Sasuke's speed that was almost invisible to the naked eye, also became very difficult to look at. This kind of speed can't be beaten at all. Hey, shit Sasuke, he's always so pushy, I can kill him with a weak puncture in 3 seconds. Naruto looked at Sasuke who came over with an unhappy expression. Hearing this, Kakashi who was standing next to him could not help but flipped Byakugan. As their instructor, of course he knew the strength of the 3 of them. Whether Naruto could beat the other it's wrong, and it won't be difficult, but it's absolutely impossible to do Sasuke's level. After all, Sasuke is a speed-type ninja, and although Naruto is not slow, it is too far behind Sasuke. This gap cannot be made up by hard work. However, not everyone is as unwilling as Naruto. Except for him, Choji and the others are all fortunate. Fortunately, Sasuke's opponent is not them. Otherwise, they don't have to fight at all. They just abstain and wait for the next Chunin exam. NS. When Sasuke walked to Kakashi's side, he didn't stop for some reason, but continued to walk in the direction of Iruka and Crescent Moon not far away, making Kakashi a little embarrassed when he just wanted to say hello. Although Sasuke possesses power almost comparable to that of ordinary Jonin, his strength is still vastly different in front of Crescent Moon, who was able to directly fight against the strong man with the name of the Shadow. Hearing that, Sasuke was stunned. He had a lot of questions about the use of Sharingan recently. Originally, he thought that since he is also a survivor of the Uchiha clan, Schwanyu should treat him with the same kindness as Izumi, and wanted to ask her if she could instruct herself. After the words fell, a killing intent that seemed to have turned into substance suddenly emerged from the mysterious body of Schwanyu. Naturally, Iruka, who had already experienced countless battles of blood and fire, did not respond, but Sasuke suddenly trembled slightly. So, Mr. Iruka, you'd better let this kid stay away from me. If you are not around, even if he is your lover, even if this will incur your disgust, I will never be soft. Are you Uchiha Crescent Moon? Good job, Sasuke. Crescent Moon was casually perfunctory, she didn't seem to want to see Sasuke, she didn't even turn her head when she spoke. Hey, Mr. Iruka, you misunderstood me. Hearing Iruka's words, Zanyu chuckled, and then slowly turned his head, but still did not look at Sasuke, but completely focused on Iruka. I did this, but for the sake of that kid. Because, Schwanyu's eyes suddenly condensed, and she slowly said, if I see the face that resembles the man who slaughtered the whole clan, I don't know if I can restrain the killing intent and act irrationally. To tell the truth, if it wasn't for this kid to be your student, I would have killed him a long time ago. Although Izumi also owns 3 Tomo Sharingan, but because she is not of pure Uchiha blood, she is not good at Sharingan, and she is not famous for Sharingan, but extremely powerful sword drawing skills, so even if she is willing to help use. Thank you for reading this story at mtlarchive.com. Your support enables us to keep the site running. Hey, Zanyu, what the hell are you doing? How can someone talk without even looking at the other person? It's too clumsy to talk to women, although you are handsome, you are too young. Sister, I'm not interested in a kid like you at all. Let's change the object a little bit, the pale golden color over there. The little girl with hair is pretty good. If you strike up a conversation with her, you can be 100% successful. Iruka smiled and praised Sasuke. Sasuke nodded. After receiving Iruka's boasting, his calm face finally showed a wave of fluctuations. However, Sasuke didn't expect that they were all Avengers targeting Itachi. Not only did Schwanyu treat him with no kindness, but instead had a cold killing intent. Yep, it's good to meet your requirements. After speaking, Sasuke suddenly looked to the side as if he didn't know he was coming. He looked straight at the crescent moon of the opposing sides in the second game. He hesitated, and finally asked. Chapter 146. It's really merciless. Iruka leaned on the railing, and looked at Shino who stepped on the head of the Otonin who was called Zack, and said inexplicably. Are you talking about me? Or the kid from the Aburame clan? Nonsense, of course I'm talking about you. Iruka looked at Schwanyu like an idiot. I taught them that being merciful to the enemy is cruel to themselves, how could they feel that Shino's approach is wrong? It's you, Sasuke, somehow, are the few remaining members of your clan. 1. Even if you can't be as close to Izumi, you shouldn't be disgusted enough to kill him, right? Schwanyu didn't pay attention to Iruka's unpleasant eyes. He cast a faint glance at Sasuke's left back, and then condensely said, you should know. The reason why I hate that kid. I don't know, and I don't want to know. As he said, Iruka shook his head, and then walked towards the 7th class without turning his head back. I only know that spreading hatred to innocent people who know nothing is very despicable behavior. Despicable. What? Zanyu whispered softly. After a while, she sighed leisurely. Instead of following Iruka, she propped her body on the railing. The pair of black jewel-like eyes lost their focus, obviously thinking about something. When Iruka walked halfway, Shino, who had easily eliminated his opponent, just walked over. Ms. Iruka. Shino bowed slightly and greeted politely, his tone of voice was as flat as ever. It seemed that he had such an inaudible tone to anyone, and there was no character highlight at all, plus the one that covered himself tightly. Strictly dressed, his presence among the 9 students of Iruka is lower than that of Hinata. To be honest, Iruka also thinks that Shino is a bit inconspicuous among his students, but he is not directly ignored. The reason why he did not give him a hard request like Sasuke was just because it happened to be caught by Wanyu and Sasuke at the time. The subtle dialogue attracted attention. However, from the results of what he did just now, it appears that he values Sasuke much more than Shina, who is also focused on training, and he typically favors the other and the other. Thinking about it this way, Iruka couldn't help but feel a little ashamed of Shino, and it also made Iruka completely dispel the thoughts that he was going to encourage perfunctory. Iruka nodded, then said rather earnestly, Shino, you took a little longer than I expected. From the previous battle, I can see that your physical skills are a bit far behind other people, and your physical functions are not too obvious compared to when you just graduated. It seems that you didn't exercise yourself well after graduation. It's no good. You are a ninja and a student I have high hopes for. The requirements for yourself should be stricter and stricter. How can you relax? Hearing this, Shino, who originally thought Iruka would only say encouraging words like, well done, was slightly taken aback, and subconsciously asked. Ms. Iruka, are you paying attention to me? Nonsense. You, like Sasuke, are students that I value. I naturally pay attention to each of you. This is really rude to me as a teacher. I think I can't control it because I graduated. Are you? Believe it or not, I will let you enjoy the treatment Naruto once enjoyed. Iruka said angrily. At the end of the talk, his eyes suddenly narrowed, and the corners of his mouth twitched slightly, revealing a negative smile. Upon seeing this, Shino's mind suddenly showed the ghost expression that Iruka would have made every time when he tried to punish Naruto who died, and he shuddered. No, I didn't mean that, but I was a little surprised. If you want to ask why, I originally thought Mr. Iruka would only pay attention to the situation of Naruto and Sasuke after we graduated, but I didn't expect. Quote. Shino waved his hand, and then his tone suddenly became a little whistling. Upon hearing this, Iruka couldn't help but shook his head. Advertisement. It is true that, for special reasons, he does pay more attention to Sasuke and Naruto than others, but this does not mean that he despises other students, it is just that his character is really difficult to show the corresponding importance. Iruka suddenly stretched out his hand and gently placed it on Shino's explosive head. For a teacher, the growth of a student is equivalent to his hard work, and I am no exception. I will naturally pay attention to your situation, but you don't know it. Well, remember my words, you are already ninjas. Don't let me urge you anymore, learn to be responsible for yourself, and don't let me down next time. Yes, I understand. Shino's tone was unusually firm. Upon seeing this, Iruka smiled, and then slapped Shino's shoulder encouragingly before leaving. When Iruka came behind Sasuke, the two players in the third round had already been determined. One was Konoha Shinobi named Ken Maikung, and the other was Konkuro from San Shinobi. Iruka just glanced at the two casually and was not interested. N.S. Nah, Sasuke, what did you do when you were looking for the crescent moon? Tell me, maybe I can help. Hearing this, Sasuke shook his head, and said with a bit of frustration. Speaking bluntly, Kakashi was immediately covered with black lines. Fortunately, there were no women around, otherwise the consequences of Naruto's words that offended all women at once would definitely be enough for him to drink a pot. Hearing that, Naruto looked at Kakashi with disgust. Think about it, Mr. Iruka, if I don't even have this courage, what qualifications do I have to get the power of revenge? What qualifications do I have? Have a real idea to get your approval from Mr. Iruka. Hey, Teacher Kakashi is so useless to say that he can't even compare to a woman. Naruto pointed to the crescent moon in the distance and asked with a dazed expression, but Sasuke didn't intend to explain. He nodded firmly to Iruka and said resolutely. Ms. Iruka, can you help me ask her address? I want to find a chance to visit her alone. Although I don't know why she hates me, she is the only one I can rely on now. The mentioned Kakashi's face was a little awkward and responded, that. Naruto, although I have Sharingan, I am not Uchiha. I definitely don't know the level of Sharingan better than Uchiha Crescent Moon, and about the use of Sharingan. What I can teach has been taught to Sasuke. Hey, what's going on? Sasuke will be killed by that woman. What is this all about? Therefore, only Uchiha Crescent, who has the same level of Mangekyo Sharingan as Uchiha Itachi, who Izumi told him, can help him. It's about Sharingan, Mr. Iruka, although you are very strong, but you don't have Sharingan, you definitely can't help with this aspect. At this moment, Naruto suddenly interjected. Kakashi-sensei also has Sharingan. Sasuke, why don't you ask Kakashi-sensei about Sharingan? Thank you for reading this story at mtlarchive.com. Your support enables us to keep the site running. Have you considered it? I can be sure that what the guy said just now is true. In other words, if you contact her directly, you are likely to be killed. His strength has reached a bottleneck. Whether it is the use of abilities, chakra strength, or physical function, the current training method cannot bring him much strength improvement in a short period of time. If you want to make a breakthrough, then only looking for new breakthrough points. Hearing this, Iruka shrugged immediately. He was really not busy with this. His understanding of Sharingan only had some related knowledge that he had said during a small chat with Izumi. Izumi didn't know much about Sharingan, let alone say him. Iruka reminded them softly, and when they heard this, Kakashi and Naruto were suddenly a little confused. And the powerful blood of the Uchiha clan flowing on him, the powerful and weird power of Sharingan is the best breakthrough point, but whether it is Kakashi who only has the blood of Sharingan but not the blood of Uchiha clan, or the impure Uchiha Izumi, in Sharingan nothing can help him. Sasuke turned his head suddenly and looked at the crescent moon standing alone not far away with a complicated expression. After a while, he hesitated and said firmly, Chapter 147. In that case, come to my house tomorrow. Xuanyu stayed at my house temporarily recently. When third generation explained the Chunin exam process, although he didn't listen carefully, he still knew a general idea. The qualifiers are over and the formal trials will be held 1 month later. That is to say, starting tomorrow and ending 1 month later today. It's the preparation time for candidates, Sasuke must be free. Quote. As soon as Iruka finished speaking, they noticed that Naruto, Sasuke, and Kakashi suddenly looked at themselves with subtle eyes. What are your eyes? Do you want to make trouble? It's nothing, I just think Mr. Iruka, should you pay a little attention to the women around you? To be honest, even I think you are a bit scum. Hearing Kakashi's words, Iruka frowned. Before he could refute, Naruto on the side continued, Iruka teacher, who is our sister? I thought it was Sister Ayame, but I was in Nami country last time. At that time, you hooked up with the pre-examination examiner, that's fine, why suddenly something popped up? Halfway through Naruto's words, he suddenly felt his body sink. A premonition that he hadn't felt for months but was still very familiar suddenly emerged. The next moment, he suddenly screamed, and his body fell straight to the ground in a large font. Immobile. Oh, I'm proud, Naruto, dare to tease me. Maintaining 8 times the fixed point gravity, Iruka suddenly turned his head, and then raised the corner of his mouth, looking at Kakashi with a sullen smile. Familiar, if I talk nonsense, I will teach you the same way, believe it. Just kidding, kidding. Kakashi hurriedly waved his hand and succumbed to Iruka's lewd power. With Naruto's monster-level stamina, he was instantly suppressed by Iruka. Although his strength is much stronger than Naruto, this does not mean that his physique is as powerful as Naruto. It is better not to provoke Iruka, the pervert Chunin. Iruka snorted, and after a while, he felt that Naruto was thinking about it, and then relieved the gravity field, and then said very uncomfortably. Forget about the crescent moon, and I'm also about the same age anyway, but what the hell are Kwanmei and Changpu? Do I look like the kind of scumbag who will attack a little girl? So you are only in your 20s. What qualifications do you have to call Uchiha Izumi, the 18-year-old girl, little girl? And after 5 years of getting along, there will be no sparks at all. Lie. Kakashi looked at Iruka with black lines, but the thoughts in his mind could not be directly expressed. As a ninja, he must recognize the situation in front of him. Iruka's mysterious and powerful power is undoubtedly for the sake of his elite Jonin's face. In consideration, Kakashi was shameful. Sorry, Mr. Iruka, I misunderstood you. Hearing that, although Iruka can hear the perfunctory meaning of Kakashi's words, he doesn't bother to care about these trivial things. After a somewhat uncomfortable glance at Kakashi, Iruka continued. Sasuke, if you really plan to find Schwanyu to guide you in your cultivation, you'd better be mentally prepared. Her character is completely unpredictable. I can't help you much. You can't even guarantee your safety. Everything is you can only rely on yourself. Sasuke nodded. Well, I see, Mr. Iruka. Iruka can perceive the fluctuations in the force field of the crescent moon. It is much stronger than the elite Jonin like Kakashi and Izumi, and can be compared with the third-generation old man, and even stronger. With Sasuke's current strength, even if facing the crescent moon, it is not enough. There is no resistance, but if crescent moon really wants to kill him, it definitely doesn't take much effort. With Sharingan's power alone, crescent moon is many times stronger than Sasuke. At this moment, Naruto suddenly pointed to the crescent moon in the distance, and complained for some reason. Ms. Iruka, if that beautiful big sister is willing to guide Sasuke's practice, will Sasuke's strength be much stronger than it is now? Quote. Of course, not to mention the guy Schwanyu, the strength is absolutely beyond doubt, and is of the same race as Sasuke. In terms of blood inheritance, she is more suitable to be Sasuke's teacher than me. Advertisement. Iruka answered naturally, and hearing his words, the dissatisfaction on Naruto's face suddenly became more obvious. Sasuke is already very strong, and now I have found a teacher who is most suitable for him, then I won't be able to catch up with him for the rest of my life. This is not fair. Teacher Iruka, would you please help me with special training, or give me some special training? I'm looking for a teacher who is particularly suitable for me, so I don't want to chase the back of Sasuke, the *** for the rest of my life. When he said that, Naruto didn't notice Kakashi, whose face grew darker with his words. Iruka did notice, but he didn't bother to care about whether Kakashi, who was the guide Jonin, would have any small emotions. Special training for you. Well, let me think about it. Iruka groaned, thinking carefully about Naruto's current situation. Chakra's control ability is average, and his brain is a little bit better, but apart from these two flaws, other aspects are very outstanding, especially Chakra's weight and physical stamina, which is simply too strong. In this case, the most suitable direction for his cultivation is. No precise operation is required, only a large amount of chakra and continuous output are required. At the same time, it is suitable for elemental abilities and can improve the strength qualitatively. If all these considerations are combined, there is only one thing. Thinking of this, Iruka suddenly stopped thinking, and suddenly said a vocabulary that made a few people very strange. Cultivation, freedom, right. Hearing that, not only Naruto, but even Sasuke was stunned. These three characters could not guess what kind of technique it was from the name. His strong curiosity made him even more urgently ask than Naruto. Road. Ms. Iruka, what kind of technique is that? As soon as the voice fell, a sorrowful scream suddenly sounded underneath, followed by a few crisp sounds of click, and the scream stopped abruptly, leaving only the surprised exclamation of the spectators. That's it, that guy is a puppet master. It's really mean, using a puppet is almost the same as 2 to 1. Is this really okay? The puppet is like a shuriken, so he did not violate the rules. He can only blame Sword Maikung for underestimating the enemy and careless, even the real person and the puppet are not distinguished. As Moonlight Storm announced the end of the third game, there was a chatter around, but Iruka was really not interested in the match between the two genins. He didn't even have a look at it. When the surroundings finally calmed down, he continued with the topic just now. The so-called self-sufficiency means that only the elemental abilities can be used, and the entire body can be freely transformed into the elements manifested in the spiritual realm, so as to achieve immunity to general physical attacks, and at the same time can use the transformed element to counterattack. Hearing this, Sasuke, who had a better mind, suddenly brightened his eyes, but Kakashi, who had no knowledge of superpowers, spiritual realms, and elements, was completely confused, and could only barely understand a general idea. Like Sasuke, Naruto is a ninja and superpower. Ms. Iruka, I don't quite understand your explanation, can you? Keep it simple. Oh, I knew. Iruka sighed, and when he was about to spend more words, Sasuke suddenly answered. Simply put, it means being able to become an invisible existence. For example, your ability is to control the storm. After learning that technique, you can turn your body into the wind, thereby immune to shuriken and kunai, and even non-restrained tolerance. The technique of the attack, Mr. Iruka, is that right? Iruka nodded, and said admiringly, it's almost like that, Sasuke, your sabi is really high, not bad. Seeing Iruka praise Sasuke again, Naruto suddenly became a little upset. Huh, I actually understood it right from the beginning, so I don't need Sasuke to help explain. Naruto is as strong as ever. Iruka can't help but smile because of his unwillingness to admit defeat, but he didn't reveal his hard-mouthed lie. Although Sasuke's aptitude makes him very pleased, he prefers Naruto in comparison. Lovely student.